Crimson Tide of Alabama continuing their own record with their 58th bowl appearance. The opposition from East Lansing, the Spartans of Michigan State, co-champions of the Big Ten for the first time in 20 years. It's the Capital One Bowl from Orlando, Florida. On a Chamber of Commerce day, sunny skies, temperatures in the mid-70s. Alabama against Michigan State, number 16 against number 9. The SEC against the Big Ten, one of 6 games on ESPN's family of networks today. We'll cap it off with a Rose Bowl following us, and then the Fiesta Bowl from Glendale, Arizona, later on tonight. Interesting matchup in that these two teams have never met. First meeting between the Tide and the Spartans. Michigan State seniors have won a school record 33 wins in their 4 years, and Alabama 6-1 against top 10 teams in the last 2 seasons. Their last loss was a gut-wrenching one in their last game in the matchup with Auburn. Welcome to Orlando, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm Brad Nessler with Todd Blackledge. A year ago, partner, we were talking about Alabama having a Heisman Trophy winner in Mark Ingram on their way to a perfect season and a national championship. What a difference a year makes. You know, just a handful of plays, and they have 3 losses.
Yeah, they got everybody's best shot this year, and they weren't able to make the plays down the stretch. They're still very talented. In fact, they're as talented as any team in the country. My question, how motivated are they?
Right.
2 nights ago, I did Nebraska, Washington, and San Diego. Nebraska, similar situation, more talented, heavy favorite, but they had suffered a gut-wrenching loss down the stretch in the Big 12 championship game. They were not motivated to match that of Washington in that game. That's my question with Alabama tonight. Are they motivated?
I think Michigan State is. It seems like they still think they have something to prove. 11-1, a great season. They had a coach that had a heart attack. They made it through that and all the adversity. But I think of them as like tough and resilient when you think about Michigan State.
You know what? Every now and then you have a team. You can't really put your finger on what makes them special, but they are special. It's chemistry. Great leadership, great seniors. They have fourth-quarter comebacks. They've done it all to have a great season, but I agree. I think they still feel like they have something to prove and a statement to make against the defending national champions.
Well, let's see who gets the ball first. Let's go down to midfield in the coin toss.
Joe Tate, now a 2nd Lieutenant Marine, just returned from Afghanistan.
It is heads. Michigan State wins the toss. They're going to defer. We want to take the ball. You want to receive?
Oh, no, you say you want to kick.
Which way do you want to kick it? You want to kick it this way. All right.
So Michigan State won the toss and deferred. Alabama will have the football first. Before we do that, we go to the 3rd member of our team, Holly Rowe. Holly?
Well, Happy New Year's, everybody. For Michigan State today, they have a lot to prove, but Alabama coach Nick Saban started out proving things in his career early on when he was the head coach of Michigan State. He was there for a 4-year stint, and his secondary coach for 4 years was a young Mark D'Antonio. Coach D'Antonio told us the thing he admired the most about his boss, Nick Saban, was that he could regroup people. When things went wrong, he wasn't a kind of coach who would blame others. He'd say, let's get it fixed. And for Nick Saban, he said the thing he admired about his young secondary coach was that he was a great all-around person, a great recruiter, and a great teacher. So what started out as a mentor-student relationship, guys, now these 2 men kick off as peers today.
And you know, when you spend time with the 2, their demeanor is very similar. And Mark D'Antonio's built a program much like, as Holly said, Nick Saban has done several places. Alabama will get the football first. The Spartans in their green jerseys and helmets, the white pants. Alabama in all white with the crimson helmets. Been a fun week for both the Spartan and Tide fans, and the Capital One Bowl is underway. Trent Richardson from the 3-yard line. And slips. Had some help slipping at the 21. Max Bullock, the freshman linebacker, made the stop. Greg McElroy, academic All-American, first team in that capacity in everybody's books, and he's not bad on the football field either.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I'm curious to see his whole attitude and demeanor, too. His offensive coordinator, Jim McElwain, said in that Auburn game, he got, in his words, his eggs scrambled pretty good by that Auburn defense. And he was out for a lot of the early practice in preparation for this bowl. But he's back healthy now and a chance to play in his final game as the Alabama quarterback.
The senior out of Southlake, Texas, will set him up in a shotgun, first down at the 21-yard line. And he's going to throw on first down. And completes it for a first down. Pickup of about 14 to Preston Dial, the tight end. Let's take a look at the Capital One starting lineups for you. Here's the big eaters up front for Alabama. Carpenter, Warmack, Lejos, Jones, Ingram, Dial, Jones, Hanks, and Michael Williams. The wide receivers, backs, and tight ends. Dial with that first catch got it out to the 34-yard line on the first play of the ball game. A quick throw out to Darius Hanks. And Hanks, whoa, man, did he get popped right in front of the Spartan bench at the 39-yard line by Johnny Adams. Hello, Johnny. Here's Johnny.
Well, it just was a perfect hit. You know, I mean, Hanks was standing straight up as he got to the sideline fighting off one tackle, and he was an easy target for Johnny Adams.
So second down and 4. And whistles will stop this play. It was going to be an inside handoff to Julio Jones. And it's false start.
And right away we...
False start. 65 of the offense. 5-yard penalty. First down.
We see something in the way that Michigan State is lining up defensively a little bit different. Their best cover corner, Chris L. Rucker, who normally just plays into the boundary, is going to line up with Julio Jones all over the place. And that's a matchup that they want to try to keep intact as much as they can. The only place it'll be difficult to do is when he's in the slot. But wherever number 8 goes, number 29 is going to go with him.
First team all SEC performer Julio Jones, one of the great wideouts in the country. Here's the Heisman Trophy winner from last year, and he's stopped by Greg Jones for no gain. Capital One defensive starters for Michigan State. Strayhorn, Worthy, Treadwell, and Neely up front. The linebackers, you just saw Greg Jones, Gordon, and Norman flank him. And in the secondary, Adams, who made that big hit early, Robinson Hyde, and Chris L. Rucker. 2 Chris Ruckers on the team. That's why the middle initial for Chris defensively.
And again, out on the wide side of the field, this is Julio Jones and Rucker. One-on-one on the outside.
Third down and long. McElroy deep sideline. Julio Jones out there.
Wow, late flag.
And there comes the flag, and it's on Rucker.
One of the things that Greg McElroy has done a much better job of this year than he did last year is getting the ball to Julio Jones, particularly early in the game. 33 of Julio's 75 catches have come in the first quarter.
Greg Burks, our referee.
They're going to have to let Rucker have a little bit of contact because he's going against a very physical guy. But you can see he grabbed the jersey. It wasn't the pushing. It was the grab of the jersey with his left hand that got the penalty for Chris L. Rucker.
So they pick up the first down on a 3rd and 10 by penalty, and they've got it at the 49-yard line. Crimson Tide on the opening possession of the football game. Looks like a blitz may be coming. They will draw play Ingram. Mark broke through the first wave and picked up about 5. Let's check in with Holly.
Well, this matchup with Chris L. Rucker and Julio Jones was no accident today, guys. The night that the bowl matchups were announced at 9:05, as soon as they knew they were playing Alabama, Pat Narduzzi, the defensive coordinator for Michigan State, got a text from Chris L. Rucker. He showed it to me yesterday, and it said, "Coach, I want Julio." And Coach kind of texted back, "Well, we'll see." And he said, "No, I want him the whole game." I talked to Chris before the game, and he said he's ready. I'm going to be physical with him. I'm going to stay on his hip and use my technique. And then one of his teammates told him, "Hey, have some fun out there. We'll see if he can have fun and not get more penalties."
If he was texting right now, he'd say, "I want the trainer." As he limps off to the sideline. And hopefully he'll shake that off and be back in a play. Let's take a look at what happened to him at the end of that play. And he got rolled on pretty good right there. Oof. One of the offensive linemen trying to get a block out there for Mark Ingram. And so Alabama and Michigan State territory for the first time.
And don't be surprised to see him go right to Julio. Here he is in the slot now. It's hard to match up with him in the slot, and Rutgers on the sideline.
Mitchell White's the guy that took his spot. They're going to come in a crossing pattern to Marquise Mays down the sideline. First down all the way down to the 26-yard line. So McElroy and the Tide rolling.
This is the area or the matchup that Nick Saban felt they had an advantage. Their offense, Alabama's, against Michigan State's defense. He didn't feel Michigan State had the kind of pass rushers that Alabama was used to seeing in the SEC. And then the wideouts and the ability of these wideouts to get up the field quickly. And right now, Greg McElroy in a nice rhythm.
They spotted at the 27 is where he was knocked out. First down, Alabama. Fluker, I think, the right tackle with the false start.
False start. Number 76 for the offense. 5-yard penalty. First down.
When you look at this Alabama offense this year, the biggest difference has been the play of their offensive line. I mean, last year they were a dominant group, and they knew they had some new guys and some young guys in there, but their rushing numbers, they only averaged 175 yards a game rushing. That's way down from where they were a year ago. Passing game has actually been pretty solid all year.
Ingram up to the top of your screen as an extra wide receiver. Now they do come with Julio Jones on the inside handoff on the end around. He stiff-armed one, but he didn't get away from the second. And no gain on the play. So they were going to run that earlier going to the left. This time they came to the right, and Michigan State was waiting for it.
Mentioned the running game, and that, you know, it involves primarily the offensive line, but look at the difference from last year to this year. Yards per game, touchdown runs, and the big plays, the explosive plays just haven't been there as much in the running game, part because of the offensive line, part because of injuries at the running back.
Mark Ingram missed the first 2 games, and Trent Richardson missed parts of the last 3. They're going to flare it out to Marquise Mays again. He's the guy that got him this far, and he's got him inside the 20 now. Let's get an update on Chris L. Rucker from Holly.
Well, guys, you can see him trotting back out on the field right now. He came over and had his left shin, kind of that high ankle area, examined. He took some cuts, did some movement laterally on the sideline, and he's told the trainers he can go back in. But one other loss, guys, number 10, Chris Norman, the starting linebacker. He's already out right now. They're retaping his right elbow. We'll see how that progresses.
All right, Holly, thanks. 3rd down, 8th play of the drive. This is 3rd and short. They picked up the 3rd and 10 by penalty. And now it's McElroy in the shotgun in an empty backfield again. Here comes Ingram down to the bottom of your screen as the extra wide receiver. McElroy, quick toss, pitch and catch. Michael Williams, first down.
And that, as much as anything, I mean, they got the first down. It was a nice read and a throw by McElroy, but that, to me, shows the difference from Alabama's offense last year and this year. 3rd and very short. Yeah. You get in there and you pound it with Ingram or Trent Richardson and get the first down. But that hasn't been their strength as much this year as it was a year ago.
They're at the 15 with a first down. 7 of Michigan State's 17 interceptions this year have come in the red zone. They've been very efficient at stopping the pass down in this area. Richardson in there now. Will get the call. Up the middle. Inside the 10. Spins to maybe another first down.
You know, all the Alabama coaches told us, you know, Trent Richardson just hasn't been himself. He hasn't looked himself the last 2-3 ball games. This looked like Trent Richardson. I mean, explosive, no hesitation, lowering the shoulder, spinning, busting through arm tackles. And they just haven't seen this out of Trent Richardson ever since he had the MCL injury in the LSU game. 2nd
down at inches just outside the 5. It's Richardson again. Puts his head down, and it's 1st and goal, Alabama. That injury that Todd was talking about forced Trent Richardson to miss the Mississippi State and the Georgia State games. But now he's got the Tide inside the 4-yard line.
Very impressive opening drive for Alabama. Greg McElroy going with the no huddle. Very efficient throwing the football. And now they're running it here once they've gotten into the red zone.
Now they got Preston Dial in the backfield as they finally put the ball down right at the 3-yard line. 1st and goal, Alabama. Opening drive of the game.
One of the guys,
the 11th play.
Yeah, one of the guys they haven't had in for 2 weeks is Barrett Jones, the right guard. He's back today. Look for him to run behind him.
Richardson Gordon and company are there as he got to about the 1.
Here's Barrett Jones right here. He missed the Auburn and the Georgia State game with an ankle injury, and that's where they're going to run. That's the veteran in their group. But a nice job of Michigan State rallying to the football to get the stop.
And the guy you just talked about is on the sideline.
Yep. High ankle sprain, missed 2 games.
2nd and goal at the 1. Dial again as the up man in the eye with Richardson, the tailback. Richardson, right side, met at the goal line by Gordon. Wow. Back-to-back stops by the outside linebacker, making his school record 49th straight start. He's a football player.
This is a great tackle because Richardson is explosive, but Gordon does not shy away from it at all. He meets him chest high, right in the hole, stands him up, and waits for help. That is not an easy task, stopping Trent Richardson at 225 pounds right at the 1-yard line.
Would Chris Spielman like that tackle or what?
Yes, he would.
It's 3rd and goal. Ingram now in the tied backfield. Mark gets the call, and he's in. Touchdown, and he ran over Marcus Hyde for the tied score. Tying the school record of Sean Alexander. Touchdown number 41 for number 22.
Well, this one bounced outside a little bit, and so instead of meeting a 230-pound linebacker in the hole, he met a 200-pound safety. And Ingram was able to run over him and get the ball across the plane.
Jeremy Shelley in for the point after. 13-play drive, 79 yards, 7-0 Alabama. Key pass interference on 3rd and 10, remember. And then it was Marquise Mays that got him down inside the 25. Trent Richardson got him close, and Mark Ingram got him in. Today's aerial coverage brought to you by DirecTV. Don't just watch TV, DirecTV. Great shot. Capital One Bowl in Orlando. Perfect day and a perfect opening drive for Alabama. And that's not what you want to see if you're a Michigan State fan. 2 of your starters on defense going to the locker room.
Yeah, about 23 minutes early, you know, before halftime. The good news is they weren't being driven in by a cart. I mean, they were both walking in on their own. But a beautiful start for Alabama. Ingram with the touchdown. Greg McElroy, 4 of 4 throwing the football. Really set the tone.
Cade Foster to kick off. Short kick. And taken at about the 19-yard line out to the 33 is where Michigan State will go to work offensively for the first time today. Kirk Cousins, he has been sensational this year. 2-time captain. He'll be a 3-time captain when he comes back next year out of Holland, Michigan. And boy, in the second half of games this year, and especially in the 4th quarter, this guy's been magic.
And when a guy does that, it just inspires the team. So then the team thinks, you know what, it doesn't matter. If we're down by double digits in the 4th quarter, Kirk Cousins is going to find a way to get us right back in the game. And he has proven himself that way all season.
They have been slow starters if there's a wrap against the Spartans. Great in the second half, slow in the 1st quarter. Right now they're down a touchdown. And here's their opening snap of the ball game at the 33-yard line. Edwin Baker, and he's dropped for a loss by Nico Johnson, the linebacker, and a loss of 5. Alabama comes into this game giving up about 123 yards a game rushing. And nice way to open things up, dropping the tailback, and a good one for a loss of 5. That's Kirby Smart, the defensive coordinator over there on the sideline.
The one thing you're not going to get against this defense is slow developing running plays, and that was a slow developing starting play, and Alabama really crowded the line of scrimmage.
Cousins now will set up in the shotgun at 2nd and 15. Kirk, plenty of time, throws complete to his tight end, back across the original line of scrimmage is Charlie Gant, the tight end, to pick up a 6. Let's take a look at the Capital One Michigan State offensive lineup. Young and Foreman, Steve Pack, McDonald, and Dean. The backs and receivers, Edwin Baker, Benzik, Dell, Nickel, and Gant. Nickel starting today. B.J. Cunningham, their top receiver, best all-around receiver, broke his foot in bowl game preparations. He's on the sideline in a cast. Already he's had surgery. Big loss for them. And so they're going to have to make it up with 2 or 3 different guys to fill in for B.J. Caper in the backfield now with Cousins as it's 3rd down and 9. And here comes the blitz. Cousins completes it to Markdell for a 1st down. And it's out to the 48-yard line.
Well, really nice read by Kirk Cousins. Alabama tried to come with a blitz. The blitz is going to come from this direction. Kirk Cousins is going to see one-on-one out here on the slant and get the ball to Markdell. He knows the blitz is coming. He knows he has to get rid of the football, but he also knew he had a one-on-one matchup for the 1st down.
So they got 14 on a 3rd down and 9 to Dell. Nice inside move on Milner to move the sticks. 1st down, Michigan State. 2 tight end set. And they give it on an end around to Keyshawn Martin, and he is losing ground. Knocked out and over a table, and a loss maybe of a half a yard. Defensively for Alabama, tough up front, Darius especially with Chapman and Davis. The linebackers are a good group. They always are. Williams, you saw Johnson make that big play. Dante Hightower back to full speed, and Upshaw, Milner, Kirkpatrick, Lowry, and Lester. Lowry in there, Mark Barron, arguably their best player, and the guy that calls all the signals on the back end is out with a torn pec muscle.
And that is a huge loss for this Alabama defense for the reason you mentioned. Not just a great player, but really the guy that was responsible for getting everybody lined up. And the only guy in that defense in the secondary with experience.
2nd down and 9. Cousins wants to throw a screen, and he got leveled. Great job defensively. There's Mark Barron with a smile on his face. You see his arm in a sling. Kirk Cousins, you know, that looked like a nice setup. You want to let guys through defensive line, but you don't want them drilling you before you throw the ball.
Well, a defensive lineman may not get there very fast, but a cornerback is going to get on you in a hurry. And that was a corner blitz from the short side of the field, and so Cousins had to get rid of the football. But again, that screen, a little bit of a slow developing play. I think they're going to realize that this Alabama defense may be the fastest bunch that they've come up against all season.
They picked up their last 3rd down and 9. Let's see if they can do it again. Last time they went to Dell on the quick slant. Cousins across the middle. It's Dell again, and it's another 1st down, Michigan State. This time they got 13 on 3rd and 9.
Well, again, Alabama came with pressure on 3rd and long, and Kirk Cousins knows where his matchup is. And Kirkpatrick got screened a little bit by the inside receiver and wasn't able to close the gap on Markdell for the 1st down. Nice job by Kirk Cousins reading that blitz and not panicking and making the throw.
You saw Rucker come back out of the locker room, so hopefully he'll be back defensively for Michigan State. Right now their offense in Alabama territory. Play action. Cousins steps up into the pocket, feels the pressure, and now Kirk will run and get what he can. And he's out of bounds at about the 34-yard line.
Really a nice answering drive by Michigan State right now. After the opening touchdown drive by Alabama, and it's really been Kirk Cousins making some big-time throws on 3rd down. The 8th play right now for Michigan State. So they've responded. They're not going to make a living, though, Brad, going 3rd and long against this defense too much. I mean, they've converted twice in this drive, but they've got to get into more manageable 3rd down situations long-term against this defense.
2nd and 6 is not too bad after that scramble of 4 by Cousins. He's under center this time. They still haven't established any ground game at all. Baker behind him, the tailback. And he'll get the carry. And Baker got about a yard. That's it. And Edwin Baker comes in as the 3rd best rusher in the Big Ten, almost 1,200 yards on the season.
The one game, the only game that Michigan State lost was at Iowa, and they couldn't run the ball there either. Only 31 yards rushing on 20 carries. It was the lowest by far of the season. Now, part of it was they got behind early and maybe got away from the run because they were down 17-0 at the end of the 1st quarter. But Alabama very well aware of the fact that when they don't run well, they've got problems.
Well, this isn't 3rd and long, 3rd and 5, though. And it's been Markdell on the other end of Kirk Cousins' passes to get him this far. Cousins over the middle, completes it to Nickel, and he's got a 1st down. At the 25-yard line, Keith Nickel. Ex-quarterback who this time a year ago was just making the transition from battling Kirk Cousins to be quarterback to being a wide receiver.
A lot of crossing routes against this Alabama defense. They play a lot of matchup zone, so it's kind of like man-to-man, even though it's zone behind it, and crossing routes can be effective. And right now, Kirk Cousins doing a nice job finding the open guy coming out of those crosses.
They are living on the third down edge right now. Or in my partner's case, the third down ledge. It's inside the 25 and a first down for Michigan State. Trying to tie things up here. A well-played first quarter. Penalty marker down. Just when I say that, we have a flag.
Prior to the snap, false start, 59 of the offense. 5-yard penalty, first down.
So that backs it up to the 29. We talked about their slow starts. First quarter has not been good to Michigan State. Caper stays in as the setback from the 29-yard line. They fake it to him. Cousins wants to throw back the other way. And a man, it was Caper on a little wheel route, but he couldn't get it over Marcel Darius.
And again, it's the speed of this Alabama defense getting to the quarterback. That time it was Marcel Darius who was in Cousins' face so quickly he couldn't allow this play to develop. Watch Darius get there before Cousins wanted to throw. See, he's got to hold that ball a little bit longer. He's got the matchup he wants with his back going against Nico Johnson, but he had to throw the football earlier than he wanted to.
Marcel Darius, who was sensational in the bowl game a year ago with an interception for a touchdown against Texas, and he's come bowl ready again. He is something on that defensive front. 11th play of the Michigan State drive. They'll pitch it to Baker. Nowhere to hide. Knocked out of bounds. And he may have lost about 2 or 3 at least. And here comes, guess what, another long yardage situation.
Well, and again, right now, if you're Don Treadwell, the offensive coordinator for Michigan State, you can't think, okay, we can't run against these guys. We've got to stick to it because they're play-action pass, and that's their MO. That's their personality. But running outside on this Alabama defense is not easy.
If you don't get all of the 18, you want to get something and give your kicker a chance. Right now they're on the edge of their field goal kicker's range. Cousins in the shotgun. Here comes the pressure. He got away from it and threw an interception to Robert Lester. His 8th of the year going the other way. That is the one thing you didn't want to do.
Yeah, well, again, it was Marcel Darius who got the pressure. He's the one that made Kirk Cousins uncomfortable. Watch 57 force him to step up in the pocket, and then he didn't have clear vision down the field, and Robert Lester made him pay.
Two coaches speaking at the pep rally a couple of nights ago here in Orlando. Courtesy of Robert Lester's 8th interception of the season. He was #1 in the SEC. He was #3 in the country. And if you thought maybe he doesn't know where to find the football, well, as I said 7 other times, 2 against Arkansas, 2 against Mississippi State, and now a huge one here in the Capital One Bowl to stop a Michigan State drive and give the ball back to his offense at the 38-yard line. Here's number 8 on the season. So Alabama works from the 38 with a touchdown lead. We got 2:21 remaining first quarter. Brad Nessler, Ty Blackledge, and Holly Rowe with you from the Capital One Bowl in beautiful Orlando. Ingram, they've got a yard. Jarrell Worthy made the stop defensively for Michigan State.
Well, the good news for Michigan State is Rucker is back on the field. Appears to be okay. John Mish is in for Chris Norman. That's kind of an equal trade-off for them at linebacker because Mish is the guy that rotates in at linebacker, and he plays quite a bit for them as well. Very smart player playing the outside linebacker now, number 36.
The one time that Rucker won't line up against Julio Jones is when he's in the slot, and right now he's in the slot on the right-hand side. They're going to throw a screen out to Ingram. He dropped the ball, and it's incomplete. Don't forget, coming up after the Capital One Bowl today right here on ESPN, the Rose Bowl game presented by Vizio. Undefeated Horned Frogs at TCU, led by Andy Dalton, take on the rough and rugged Wisconsin Badgers, who are 11-1. Coverage starts 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific. The Rose Bowl is also on ESPN Radio, online at ESPN3.com, and on your phone. The Horned Frogs with a great defense, but can they slow down those big hosses from Madison?
Well, this Michigan State defense did. You know, when they beat them 34-24 back in October, they held Wisconsin to 165 yards rushing, and John Clay snapped a 10-game streak of running for over 100 yards. So it's been done, and TCU will have their hands full tonight.
3rd down and 9, Alabama. McElroy to Julio Jones, 1st down. And you hear the chants of Julio from the Alabama faithful.
Well, you mentioned it's hard to get your matchup with him when he's in the slot, and that's where they put him on this 3rd down play. In the slot, it's zone coverage. He just finds an opening in there. And again, this year, the biggest change in Greg McElroy has been his ability to get the ball to Julio Jones early and often and down the field for bigger plays. He's done a much better job of that this season.
And this one's batted down by John Mish. Nice play by the outside linebacker. They're going to try to set up that quick screen out to Hanks again.
Well, they've tried to throw quick screens quite a bit in this game already. Mish anticipating a couple of those. That one and the one to Ingram, very close to being a backward pass.
So 2nd down and 10. Final minutes of the 1st quarter. Dial trots out wide to the right. McElroy looking across the middle. And down he goes. He scrambled for a couple. Anthony White made the stop. Time right now for today's Capital One Football Academic All-American Player of the Year, University Division, and the Academic Player of the Year, Capital One, senior quarterback for the Crimson Tide, Greg McElroy. So efficient. Sometimes, you know, he gets criticized. I'll tell you what, he's 23 and 3. That ain't bad. At the end of the gun right here. 3rd down and 6. Throws the out, completes, 1st down. Julio Jones in front of Rucker, who's still limping.
Good timing that time by McElroy. Again, going to his go-to guy. That's an out route. That's all timing against press coverage. It's man-to-man coverage, but it's good timing. Watch, the ball is thrown before Julio comes out of his break, and that enables him to get separation enough to make the catch.
You know, there are games where those two just hook up one after the other. Against Tennessee, Julio caught 12 balls for 221 yards. In the Auburn game, 10 for 199. He was off to a pretty good 1st quarter here. And the 1st quarter is going to come to a close. Controlled by Alabama, even though Michigan State had a good drive of their own going. One turnover has been the difference. End of one at the Capital One. Alabama on Mark Ingram's touchdown, leading 7-0.
For complete coverage.
Just about set to start the 2nd quarter of the Capital One Bowl in Orlando. As you take a look at the gorgeous field turf and not so gorgeous Sparty mascot, but we wouldn't say that when we were here a year ago. LSU and Joe Pa and Penn State. Wet, and I don't know what else to say. It was real bad last year. It looked like when you go out on a polo match with the chuckers trying to flatten out the sod, but as soon as that game was over, all that came up. And now we've got a gorgeous field here today and a fast track.
And I was talking to Steve Hogan, director of this game, down in the field before the game, and he had a big smile on his face. He said, "You can't say anything about my field this year."
No.
It is spectacular.
We didn't want to pick on it last year either, but it was pretty obvious by that flashback we just showed you. 7-0 as we start the 2nd quarter. Alabama in Michigan State territory at the 36-yard line. And Greg McElroy with 3 wideouts. Trent Richardson's with him in the backfield. Play action, deep middle. Julio Jones has got another one. 1st and goal, Alabama.
Well, this is really good recognition by Jim McElwain that they were going to try to match up Rucker on Julio every time he was outside. So they continue to put him in the slot, and he's working on a safety, Marcus Hyde, and that's easy pitch and catch for Greg McElroy. Again, why did Alabama feel like they had an advantage with their offense? Because the pass rush of Michigan State has not been that fierce this year. Only 20 sacks all season.
Alabama 1st and goal. The give is to Trent Richardson. Richardson met at the goal line. He got in. Touchdown, Alabama. time he put his head down, and he was not to be denied.
Well, I raised the question at the start of the game about motivation. How motivated will this Alabama team be? I think they are highly motivated. I mean, they have been efficient. They've thrown it, they've caught it, they've run it, and they've tackled, and they've got a 2-touchdown lead.
About to be 14-0. Jeremy Shelley's extra points to cap a 62-yard drive in 8 plays, a little under 3 minutes. Remember, that all started with an interception back at the tail end of the first quarter. And Trent Richardson, who was stood up at the goal line in the first quarter, this time he's going to take guys with him. 14-0 Alabama. Back in Orlando, where Alabama's got a 2-touchdown lead here in the second quarter. 14:33 remaining in the first half. Trent Richardson, 8-yard score. And for Trent, that is his 6th rushing touchdown of the year. Mark Ingram had a 1-yard score in the first quarter. That was his 12th for the season. So quite a combination, those two guys. You'd like to see one more year of that combination, but that's very much a question, of course, whether or not Mark Ingram will come back or go to the NFL.
Very interesting, too. Trent Richardson was on the opening kickoff coverage. And after they scored their first touchdown, and Michigan State double-teamed him. They went right at him. Well, he's not on kickoff coverage on this play. I think he might have come over to the sideline and say, hey, coach, I don't need that. I get hit enough when I run the ball.
He'll take a breather with the helmet off. Meanwhile, Cade Foster's got it teed up. Larry Caper and Benny Fowler are back deep. Oops. Ball slipped just as they got to the football. And while they reset that, we'll remind you tonight on ESPN, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, Tostitos Fiesta Bowl from Glendale, Arizona. Number 7, Oklahoma. They're playing in their 8th BCS Bowl. They'll take on Big East champion UConn. Connecticut making their inaugural BCS appearance coming up tonight. Game also available on ESPN Radio, online at ESPN3.com, ESPN 3D, and on your phone. If you miss that game, you're not trying. Here's the kick. It'll one-hop down to Fowler. And Fowler across the 25 before he's put down. Check Michigan State's offense and see if they can get something in gear like they had last time before the interception. We'll do that after this timeout. Back in Orlando, Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World here in Florida. Great place to take the kids, make some great memories. I think my favorite part of the Disney Corporation is Mr. Disney sending me that check every once in a while.
Send you one, too.
Yeah, I love it. I love that guy. At the 27-yard line, Michigan State first down. Cousins stumbled as he dropped back on the play action. He did get the pass complete. It came out of the hands, and it's picked up by Nico Johnson. Touchdown. Lincecum couldn't hold it. Nico Johnson could.
Well, you mentioned the stumble by Kirk Cousins. That affected the timing. And I think it was Lester, who already has the interception, that is going to be there to make the tackle. It is Lester who rips the ball out, and Nico Johnson scoops it up. So 2 huge plays by the safety, Robert Lester. Not what Michigan State needed.
Wow.
Previous play is under further review. Ruling on the field, catch, fumble, touchdown.
It was catch, fumble, touchdown on the field. They're going to take a look at it. Dave Ames and the guys in the replay booth will have a look, but this is what we saw. What looked like a catch by Lincecum. They hit by Lester. The scoop and score by Nico Johnson. We'll check it when we come back. As we come back, the previous play still under review. What was ruled on the field was a reception and a fumble, and subsequently a score by Nico Johnson. As you take another look at it, Lincecum, the guy that we thought made the catch and got it into his left arm, and then Lester, if it is a forced fumble, it's his first of the year, but it was a picture-perfect hit on a big guy because Lincecum's 6'5", about 240 pounds.
Yeah, and normally, and I was going to make that point, normally you see a safety go for the legs.
Yeah.
Here we go with the call.
After further review, it's an incomplete pass. Second down.
That is a huge break for Michigan State.
Absolutely. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it was a great play by Robert Lester, who went high and was able to get his hands on the football. Again, normally you see a safety just take the legs out of a bigger tight end. He goes up high for the tackle.
To 14-22.
You know, the more you look at that particular angle, I think I have to agree maybe. I wouldn't have earlier before they looked at it that long. So,
well, Mark Antonio agrees with you.
Yeah, I know he does.
He likes that verdict.
So is everybody that's wearing green and white in the stadium here, and everybody back in Michigan watching at home. So Sparty's got the ball back, and now they're not down 21, but they're still down 14. Baker cuts it outside. This is his best run of the day, and a big hit at the end, a couple of them, and now Edwin Baker's fired up.
Well, Dre Kirkpatrick hit him. It almost looked like he came off the sideline to hit him, but he was on the Michigan State sideline. He had gotten blocked out of bounds, and he hit Baker at the end of the play right at the Michigan State bench. Watch this. Kirkpatrick's out of bounds, and he's going to come back in and hit Baker still out of bounds. And that's where the penalty comes.
After the play, personal foul. Number 21 in the defense. 15-yard penalty. It is first down.
I don't think I've ever seen that before, to be honest with you.
First of all, it's not a good idea to do it on your own sideline. It's really a bad idea to do it on the opponent's sideline.
And here it is again. So there he is. Kirkpatrick is 5 yards out of bounds on the wrong sideline, and he does that. So it's a run of 12 and a penalty of 15.
What a turnaround, though.
Wow.
I mean, the call goes Michigan State's way, and the first play after that, they finally get something going with their running game and Edwin Baker.
Baker, the tailback in the eye, as they're in Alabama territory for the second time, and he'll get the pitch. Trying to take it left, and nice job to cut him down by DeMarcus Milner. As we check in, first time today. Happy New Year, Reese Davis. Reese.
Brad, Happy New Year to you guys as well. On ABC, Penn State has a 7-0 lead on Florida, another of the SEC Big Ten matchups. And on ESPN2, Mississippi State has just answered Michigan's early touchdown to tie it at 7. And on ESPNU, the Ticket City Bowl, Texas Tech with a commanding lead over Northwestern at the break.
All right, Reese, keep us posted. Again, 6 games on our ESPN family networks today, including the Rose Bowl after us, and the Fiesta Bowl later on tonight. Here at the Capital One Bowl, it's an end around and a pass that's coming. Nope, going to tuck it and go. Keyshawn Martin.
Really good decision by Keyshawn Martin. They tried to get a big play off the reverse pass, and Keyshawn Martin thought about it, and he had the ball up to throw it, and he realized neither one of my guys are open. I'm going to go ahead and get what I can get as a runner. Really nice decision right here to not throw the football incomplete, and in other words, get a first down out of it.
Keyshawn was a high school quarterback, and we mentioned Keith Nickel, who had a first down catch earlier, battled Kirk Cousins for the quarterback job. He's going to trot out wide to the left right here. So they might come back to that later and try number 7 throwing the football. We'll wait and see. At the 35, 1st and 10, Michigan State. Baker, nothing doing.
See, but you can't get away from the run if you're Michigan State. Even though it's been tough sledding for them, you've got to stay with it because that's your personality. And that sets up Kirk Cousins with play action and throws to the tight end and bootlegs and all the things that have made them a good offense this year. They can't abandon that, even though this Alabama defense is up for the running game right now.
So it's second down. 12:15 remaining in the second quarter. Le'Veon Bell and Baker both in the backfield. And now Bell will sprint out to the top of your screen. Cousins looking that way, going deep. Oh, what a catch by Lincecum. He held on to that one.
Coming into the game, Lincecum had 17 catches. Charlie Gant, the other tight end, 22 catches. And this is a spectacular job of going to get the football and hanging on to it when he goes to the ground.
Hello Sports Center on that one.
Wow.
28 yards, and he used all of that 6'5" frame that we talked about on the one that wasn't a catch. This one was a catch, and it's 1st and goal, Michigan State. What a turnaround. If they get a touchdown here, we got something happening in Orlando. Baker. Again, really has to struggle and maybe get a yard. Brings up second down and goal. Kirk Cousins this year has thrown 20 touchdown passes, 10 interceptions, which included the one that he threw earlier.
And again, you got to remember, he's missing his favorite target in the passing game. B.J. Cunningham out with a broken foot, led the team with 50 receptions. We've got Dell and Nickel in there right now.
Nickel comes in motion, and Cousins says, nope, we're back the other way. They might want to throw a fade over there. The throw's that way, and it is caught. Keith Nickel, but it's at the 2-yard line.
I'll tell you what, though, Michigan State's got to find a way to slow down Marcel Darius because he's getting too much pressure. Right here, watch him beat number 77. They try to cut him with the back Baker, but you got to keep your nose up and your eyes up to hit a guy. He had his nose looking at the ground and just went right by Marcel Darius, and Darius is disrupting the timing of some of the passes for Kirk Cousins. He's got to throw them earlier than he wants to.
They got an extra lineman in there. As much beef as they can bring. They'll have a full house backfield, and now flags fly.
They broke the huddle with 12 guys.
Yeah.
They had an extra guy in the huddle.
Illegal substitution on the offense. 5-yard penalty. Third down.
That's a killer.
A huge killer. Third down at the 3-yard line.
Now it's 3rd and goal at the 8.
The only positive for Kirk Cousins is if they throw on this play, you get a little bit more room to open things up in the passing game, particularly with your tight ends or your slot receivers because of the extra couple yards. But they've got to block Darius.
There's his favorite target with a cast on his foot. It's not good. In the shotgun. Alabama, here comes the heat. There goes the ball. And who's got it? Still loose. All the way back around the 35. Michigan State got the ball. John Stepek, the center, hustled back there to recover it. I think.
Well, they never blocked the outside guy. Courtney Upshaw is going to come on the outside rush, and the tackle is going to step in to take the defensive back. And nobody picks up the outside guy, and Kirk Cousins never saw it. Now watch, they're going to blitz inside. The tackle's going to take that, and nobody's going to take Cousins as he comes, or take Upshaw as he comes around the corner. And Cousins has to know whether he's protected back there or not.
They went from inside the 3 to having to punt.
But that could have been 6 going the other way just as easily as well. So they avoided that twice in this drive, even though they didn't get anything to show for it.
Bates, the punt. Lazy end-over-end kick. He's trying to drop inside the 5 and made the end zone barely. Quite a turn of events, but the scoreboard didn't change, did it? 9:08 till halftime. Alabama 14, Michigan State nothing. As you look in on a sellout crowd at the Capital One Bowl, our aerial coverage brought to you by DirecTV. Don't just watch TV, DirecTV. Brad Nessler, Ty Blackledge, Holly Rowe, and our ESPN crew in Orlando on a beautiful day, mid-70s, getting warm.
Yeah. Well, both teams have run the same number of plays so far, 21, but a big difference in who's been productive. Alabama, 136 yards of offense. Michigan State only 65 at this point in the game. Same number of plays.
Into the pistol set as Mark Ingram trots back out to set up behind Greg McElroy. Michigan State almost jumps, and they did. Jarrell Worthy, I think, is the guilty party as Greg Burks gives us a call.
Offsides. Defense number 99. 5-yard penalty. First down.
Let's check in with Holly.
Well, guys, you talked about the heat, and it's really becoming an issue for both teams. Michigan State's already got their players hooked up to some of those cooling machines. Alabama's using wet towels and pickles. Guys, it was cold all week down here for practice, so their bodies haven't been able to acclimate to this heat. This is the first day it's been upwards of 70 degrees down here for these guys, and their bodies just aren't used to it. But, hey, they've got the kosher dill spears, so we'll see if that helps.
I wish I liked pickles that much. I'd rather clamp up. Here's Ingram.
cramping for Mark Ingram, the Heisman Trophy winner. Pickup of 8 in the first down.
8 yards out of the pistol formation, and this is kind of a new wrinkle for the Alabama offense this year, and it actually has been very good for them, because when they've run out of this formation, both Ingram and Richardson, that's where their explosive plays. Look at that, 9.6 yards per carry, and 10, 20-plus yard runs. And I'll explain why the pistol is an advantage for a team like Alabama after this play.
They're in it again with a first down at the 33-yard line. Mark Ingram again. Cuts it outside. Another good run, and he ran over a couple of would-be tacklers and got a first down.
The advantage that the pistol gives you with the running back lined up directly behind the quarterback who's already in the shotgun, it forces a defense to play more even with their linebackers and give you a more balanced look. Jim McElwain, the offensive coordinator, told me last night, you know, our numbers are a little bit skewed because we've got that high yards per carry, but that's where our explosive plays have come out of.
That last one was good for 11 out of that set. It's first down for the Tide at the 45. Play fake to Richardson, and McElroy wants it all. Down the sideline, and he overshot everybody. Marquise Mays was the intended receiver. Our intended receiver is Reese Davis. Reese?
Brad, I'm always open, too. That's the way it goes. On the Outback Bowl, Florida and Penn State. Nittany Lions with a 7-0 lead on ABC. Omarius Hines, a little end around, and he'll go in to score and tie it up. Urban Meyer's final game with the Gators. Florida and Penn State tied at 7. It's on ABC.
Here we've got 14 points, but it's all on Alabama's side. And they're at the 45-yard line, a little over 8 minutes to go in the quarter. Again from the pistol set, this one's Trent Richardson, and Richardson slips and falls as he got across midfield to the 48-yard line, but he picked up 7.
Alabama has put Julio Jones in the slot formation to throw him the ball, but he's also such a big physical guy. He can block, and that time he got a great block coming back inside to get Ingram to the outside on that run. Watch Julio Jones from the slot, comes in as a blocker and gets a nice block on John Mish, the linebacker.
This would be a huge stop for Michigan State if they can prevent this 3rd and 3 here by Alabama. But they don't. Preston Dials got a first down inside the 40 and out of the 37. Marcus Hyde made the tackle, but it's a pickup of 11. Nice pitch and catch to your tight end.
And a good read because nobody picked up Preston Dial. Michigan State came with pressure, and the tight end slipped out in the flat, and nobody covered him. So McElroy did the right thing of going to him with the football.
Mark Ingram rested a couple of plays back behind McElroy, and Michigan State's going to take a timeout.
Timeout. Michigan State. They're first of the half.
We'll take the break as well. 7:21 remaining. Tied with a 2-touchdown lead, and they're looking to add to it. Michigan State hopes that's not the case. Back at the Capital One Bowl in Orlando, where Alabama's Crimson Tide has a 14-0 lead on the Spartans of Michigan State. Don't forget Auburn and Oregon for all the marbles. The BCS Tostitos National Championship game come up January 10th on ESPN, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific time. Cam Newton, the Heisman Trophy winner, and LaMichael James and the Oregon Ducks. #1 against #2. If you're looking for a huddle in that game, you probably won't see one.
Two teams that play very similar. Love to play fast, love to get as many plays as they can in the ball game, and try to wear out a defense as the game goes on.
Alabama, we've seen actually go with a no-huddle parts of this first half. And right now they got a 14-point lead and a 1st and 10. Greg McElroy back to throw. He's got Mark Ingram wide open down the sideline. Ingram cuts back in, spins his way to the 15, to the 10. Ingram to the 6-yard line. Wow, that's why he was the Heisman Trophy winner last year.
Well, Mark Ingram looks healthy, he looks fast, he looks motivated, and Greg McElroy throwing without any pressure is just finding open guys. And then this is just poor tackling and extraordinary running at the end of the play by Ingram.
Talked to Mark Ingram yesterday, and I said, is there less pressure this year because it isn't a national championship bowl game? He said, no, we prepare the same way for every game, and he has come prepared. Touchdown. The record is his now in the Alabama books. Touchdown number 42.
Great blocking on the left side. James Carpenter, the left tackle. Chance Warmack, the left guard. They just blew him out of there. And Ingram able to step into the end zone. Got to be kind of a special game for him, too. His dad played at Michigan State.
He was heavily recruited, almost went to Michigan State. His mom's here, his grandma's here, his godmother's here. He's got about 25 people here. And we know his dad is watching. And the extra point is good by Shelley. So the second touchdown of the day for number 22. Did he come prepared? You can tell by the look behind that face mask. He's prepared. 21-zip tied. Mark said yesterday, we want to win our 10th game. That hasn't happened 3 straight seasons since a 4-year stretch under Bear Bryant.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. When we talked to Mark D'Antonio about Nick Saban, one of the things he said is Nick does a great job of regrouping people when things break down. And they broke down at the end of the year, that Auburn game in the second half. And he has done a great job of getting his team ready to play in this bowl game. And you know what? Even as early as right before the game, I talked to him on the field. I said, do you have a feel yet for how your team's going to play? He says, I really don't. I'll know as soon as we start to play whether they're ready or not.
Yep.
And
they're ready.
Yeah, they answered the right question.
And this is the 3rd time the ball has fallen off the tee. It's not windy out here, so it's just the way that Cade Foster's setting it up, I guess. He's going to move it about 8 inches. That'll help.
Did you see Saban's reaction on the sidelines?
Are you kidding me?
Come on. Just put the ball on the tee. How hard is that?
Well, have somebody hold it then. Actually, that's what we're going to have.
Yeah, there we go.
It's not going anywhere right now. 3rd try is a charm here for Foster on the kickoff. You might want guys to hold it for him all the time. That's it, 7 yards deep in the end zone. 6:46 remaining till halftime as we take a look at our Pacific Life game summary. Michigan State has had a couple of breaks. What we thought was a catch and a fumble that would have been an Alabama touchdown wasn't. So they got the ball back. They got the penalty. On the sideline, Edwin Baker had something working. Then Cousins to Lincecum on an outstanding catch. They got down close. They got as close as the 3-yard line, and then bang, out comes the ball. They were forced to punt it away as Cousins was sacked. The ball squirted way back by the 35-yard line, and they came away empty. And it's got to be pretty demoralizing right now. What could have been it? Yeah. They were thinking 14-7 for sure, 14-3 at the worst. Now it's 21-zip.
Well, they can't run the football. They've carried the ball 11 times for -9 yards. Now, a couple of those were the balls that were going backwards on the ground, but nonetheless, running the ball has been tough.
And now a whistle and low snap. And another flag.
Delay on the offense. 5-yard penalty. First down.
Yeah, that's
hard to have a delay coming out of a timeout.
That can't happen.
Yeah. 3rd pre-snap penalty for Michigan State's offense.
But I think what we're seeing is an offense that has kind of, they're struggling. They don't know what to do right now.
Yeah.
The strength of this offense coming into the game was their balance, their ability to run and pass equally well and keep the defense honest. They haven't been able to get the running game going, and Alabama's defense has controlled it.
Not going to run here either, but they'll pitch it out to Caper. Oh, my goodness, what a hit by Courtney Upshaw. Wow.
See, the thing about it is, this Alabama football team, when they're playing like they are right now, they're as good as anybody in the country.
They are.
They're as good as the 2 teams playing in the national championship game. They're as good as the other teams that beat Alabama in South Carolina and LSU. They just haven't always played to that standard, but they're playing to that standard so far in this ball game, and they are extremely talented.
They might have had some fun here in Orlando, in the land of Disney, but they're all business right now. Cousins under pressure again, and down he goes again. And who got him? Courtney Upshaw, the one that just decked Larry Caper on the previous play.
Well, first it was Nico Johnson, number 35, who's going to force him out of the pocket. Watch Nico Johnson get right into the lap, and then he forces him right into Upshaw. And again, this defensive front 7 of Alabama is dominating the game.
Upshaw's having the kind of series and the kind of game he had against Auburn. He had 10 tackles, 3 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. And he was the man on those 2 previous plays. 2nd sack. And now Michigan State in a hole. A low snap from center again. Cousins has got to get rid of it. And he almost threw another interception. DeMarcus Miller had his hands on it and couldn't hold it.
This is a frustrated quarterback, a frustrated Michigan State offense, because they have no answers right now to the Alabama defense.
Remember, they dug themselves a 17-point hole against Northwestern. They're in a bigger one right now. We still got 2 more quarters and 5 more minutes, but things are not going well for Coach D'Antonio and the Spartans right now. Aaron Bates, one of the captains, their senior punter, would like to air one out here, or watch out for number 4, Marquise Mays, because he can do things as a punt returner. Average almost 14 yards a punt return. He's going to have to fair catch this one and had to come and run up on it. Alabama's in good field position again. They're up 21. They'll be looking to add to it with 5:10 to go second quarter. Trying to cool down the players and warm up the band for halftime. Capital One Bowl here in Orlando. Brad Nessler, Todd Blackledge, Holly Rowe, and our ESPN crew. We take you back to last time Alabama played. They had a big lead against Auburn, and then Cam Newton comes back with a sensational comeback and a gut-wrenching loss for Alabama, 28-27. And let the celebration begin as Auburn went on to the SEC title game, the rout of South Carolina, and now in the national championship game.
Well, it was 24-0, and I went back and watched that tape again here yesterday. And, I mean, they dominated Auburn.
Yeah.
Auburn had no answers. Very similar to the feeling I'm sure Michigan State is feeling offensively right now, but Cam Newton ended up just putting that team on his back and willed his team to a victory in Tuscaloosa.
Greg McElroy completed his first 12 passes for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. Comes up throwing here to Marquise Mays, and Mays has got the catch and picked up about 8 yards on the play. And, you know, as you talked about earlier, when things are rolling like this for the Crimson Tide, they're as good as anybody and better than most.
Yeah, and they really answered the question, would they be motivated coming into this game after that gut-wrenching loss to Auburn? Absolutely. I mean, they have been efficient. They've been on top of their game. They came here ready to prove that they are as good as anybody in the country, and they're doing it so far.
And they've still got time to prove some more here from the 36-yard line. Here's a give. Richardson, and he got a yard. Greg Jones, the middle linebacker, 2-time All-American, made the stop. But right now, Crimson Tide, look at their first 3 drives, 79, 62, and 80, and thus a 21-0 lead.
They came out throwing early. Some no huddle, shotgun, and Michigan State was not able to generate any pressure on Greg McElroy, and he got off to a good start. And then they've gone to the run here later in the first half to complement that passing game.
Let's see if Richardson can pick up a yard. They toss it to him, but he gives it to Julio Jones on the end around. He's got McElroy in front as a blocker. Julio Jones, he got a block, and he got a touchdown.
He got a great block.
Academic All-American or not, he just sprung Julio Jones 35 yards for an Alabama touchdown.
Well, it was some really nifty running early in the play by Julio Jones to get to the outside. It looked for a moment like it might even be tackled behind the line of scrimmage. But Julio Jones dipped in and then got outside, and watched the block by McElroy right up into the chest of the safety, Trenton Robinson, and Julio in the end zone.
As good a quarterback block as I've seen, 28-0 Alabama. Wow.
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good.
No cut block, no Olay block. How about right up in your grill block?
Right in the hood ornament. Wow. Julio Jones having a big first half. Look at Nick Saban, doesn't smile often. He's liking that one. Alabama dominating the first half of the Capital One Bowl.
You know, Julio Jones, what a remarkable player. And, you know, I think sometimes we forget he fractured his left hand in the first quarter of the South Carolina game. He didn't even come out of the game. Finished with 8 catches, 118 yards, and a touchdown in that game. Had surgery the next day. They put a plate and a couple screws in, and he played 6 days later against Ole Miss.
And since then, pretty good numbers, huh?
Wow.
The Alabama battery, and there's the despair on the faces of the Spartan fans right now.
And you don't have to be an academic All-American like Greg McElroy to know that if you got a guy like number 8, you're pretty smart to get him the football as often as possible.
That was quite a play.
2 minutes now. It's nothing.
Cade Foster, he's got the ball to stick on the tee this time. To the 1 yard line to Fowler. Fowler peppered as he got to the 25 yard line. We got a flag on the far side of the field. Officials talk it over. 3:45 till halftime, and a 4-touchdown lead for Nick Saban and the Tide.
Well, and now with a 4-touchdown lead, Michigan State can't think about running the football. Now it's a 2-minute offense.
Yeah.
Hurry up pretty much the rest of the way until they can get back in this game if they can.
Offside on the receiving team. 5-yard penalty, free kick.
It's pretty hard to do on the receiving team. We'll think about that one and send it to Reese Davis. Reese.
All right, Brad, coming up on the H&R Block halftime report, we'll check in not far away from where you guys are. The Outback Bowl, Urban Meyer in his final game taking on Joe Paterno, Florida and Penn State, a close one. We'll get you up to date on that. On ESPN2, Denard Robinson on display, another SEC Big Ten matchup, Michigan and Mississippi State. And we'll look ahead to the Rose Bowl game presented by Vizio on ESPN later this afternoon. Wisconsin and TCU. Mark and Lou are here. We'll see you in a bit.
All right, Reese, thanks. A lot of matchups between the SEC and the Big Ten today, including the one we've got right here, dominated by the SEC so far. So Foster again set to kick. Can't remember the last time I saw offsides on the kick return team. It's almost impossible to do. Nonetheless, we've had a little bit of everything here so far. Cade Foster may be the most finicky kickoff man I've ever met.
Kickers, man, I'm telling you, they're a rare breed.
Line drives this one on one hop, taken at the 1 yard line again by Fowler, trying to go the same direction. Now cuts back to the near side, and he's got some room. Fowler across the 35 and the 40 out to the 41 yard line. Now we got 3:35 left, but it's time right now for the final edition of Todd's Taste of the Town, brought to you by Expedia. Partner, where are you going?
Whenever I'm recognized as the Taste of the Town guy, everybody always asks me, where's your favorite spot to eat? Well, I can honestly say as we come to the end of another year, I've saved the best for last, and it's in my own home in Canton, Ohio, and my wife Sherry's homemade pizza.
We're going to check in on Sherry's Pizza, and I'm sure the boys are hungry.
Always.
The Canton household, they always are. After Michigan State with a 1st and 10 at its own 41 yard line. Keyshawn Martin, the motion man, and they give it to him on the end around. Martin, and he's knocked out of bounds. No gain on the play as we check in and see what Sherry had for the boys.
A great pizza starts with the dough, and Sherry makes hers from scratch using cracked grains to add texture. Then it's topped with high-quality ingredients. It's cooked for 10 minutes at 500 degrees on a well-seasoned pizza stone, and when it's all said and done, just like the saying goes, there's no place like home.
No place like home, and no place like homemade pizza. You know,
that's right.
That looked like you made one pizza. She made like four of them.
No. Yeah, well, right now, I think my son Harrison's basketball team, the Hoover Vikings, are there, so she's probably got about 9 or 10 of them going right now.
You need a couple extra ovens there, partner.
Yeah, that's right.
That pizza looks good right now. Flags are down as we're going to have a false start, I think, on Michigan State.
False start. 83 the offense. 5-yard penalty.
My wife started the tradition of pizza movie night on Friday nights really when I was traveling, as for something for her and the boys to do to celebrate. I guess celebrate when I was gone. I don't know. But that became the tradition. So when the season ends and I'm at home, man, I'm thrilled to get back into pizza movie night.
And trust me, folks, as you've seen Todd's Taste of the Town over the years, you know how he can eat. Those 4 boys, the apple didn't fall very far from the tree, trust me. I've met them all. I've eaten with them all. Here's a slip screen thrown out, and this nothing's working right now. Keyshawn Martin lost a couple.
Any
Upshaw again with a play.
Any play that takes time to develop against this defense has no chance. Again, that's, you ask what makes the SEC special, and you say speed, but it's not just speed in the perimeter, because every team in good college football team has speed at wide out and DB. It's speed and defensive line.
Yeah.
That's where the SEC is second to none, I think. The speed that they have at the defensive line positions from top to bottom in that league set them apart.
So another punt coming up from Aaron Bates. Second straight 3 and out for Michigan State. Not what they were hoping for. Trailing by 4 touchdowns. Nice punt. Mays takes it at the 11. Gives a little ground to try to gain some, and maybe got 2 yards on the return. With 1:44 remaining. We talked about Mark D'Antonio worked under Nick Saban when Nick was the head coach at Michigan State. Well, of course, Nick was an assistant under George Perlis. That's George a little thinner than he is now, but he was telling us some great stories the other day about Coach Perlis and Hank Bulla and all those guys that used to hang together. And Nick was just a youngster, but he learned from some good people. And through the years of head coach in Toledo, Michigan State, LSU, where he won a national title last year for the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa. And, of course, a stint with the Miami Dolphins stuffed in between. He spent 95 through 99 as a head coach at Michigan State. Actually, 3 former Michigan State head coaches, because Bobby Williams is the tight end and special teams coordinator. He's the guy that took over when Nick went to LSU. Bobby actually coached in the bowl game, which was here.
That's right. It was a really interesting tie-in, because that was the first 10-win season for Michigan State. This year was since 1999. That year, Saban left to go to LSU at the end of the regular season. Bobby Williams took over, brought his team here, and they beat Florida 37-34 in that bowl game.
And that was the 10th win of that year. And here, Alabama with a minute to go in the pistol set again. Mark Ingram behind Greg McElroy. He threw a tremendous block on the last touchdown. This time it's Ingram. And obviously, Alabama comfortable with a 4-touchdown lead. They don't have to do anything here other than let the clock wind down and get into the locker room, get some fluids.
Well, very, very efficient performance on both sides of the ball by Alabama in that first half. Greg McElroy, 10 of 13 throwing the football. Pretty much did what he wanted. Didn't have to throw the ball down the field very much, but very efficient. The running game picked up 114 yards rushing, but it started with the pass, and that set up the run. And then defensively, they've just been dominant.
We talked about their 6-1 in their last 7 games against top 10 teams. Right now, they are pasting the 9th-ranked Spartans of Michigan State. Ingram trying with second effort to get to that first down marker. He won't get there, but that's going to be the last play of the first half. A half dominated by the Crimson Tide of Alabama. And their fans are up in force as they head to the tunnel. 28-0 lead. Michigan State will have the football first to start the third quarter as we check in with Holly.
Coach D'Antonio, what's happening up on your offensive line? Kirk Cousins been under duress, and you haven't been able to run the ball.
Well, we haven't been able to run it, as you just said. You know, we got to find a way to do that. It's not like we're not attempting it. We got 2 drives down the field and hurt ourselves with 2 turnovers. You know. And offensively, that's been the story of the game. Offensively, defensively, we got to get off the field on 3rd down. Get them in 3rd and long, got to get off the field. We're making mistakes and hurting ourselves.
Coach, you've been resilient all year, though. Your team has come back in situations like this. What sense do you have that they have that in the tank right now?
We got to battle as an entire football team and program. So, we get the ball coming back out. We got to make a statement and let's get playing.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
It'll be a big comeback for Michigan State if they can put it together in the second half, because down at the break 28-0 to Alabama. Time now for the H&R Block halftime report. Reese, Mark, and Lou standing by. Capital One Bowl week and the Capital One Bowl in Orlando. First half statistics, Alabama with a gigantic edge in virtually every category, including the turnovers that Michigan State had that Alabama didn't have. That's made it what we have right now, 28-0. Welcome back to Orlando. Happy New Year. Meant to give you this last night, dude. Sorry. Didn't get around to it till now. Okay, you're either Mark D'Antonio or Kirk Cousins. You're in a 28-point hole. What do you do?
Well, you've got to block out that first half, and you got to approach this second half like it's a new ball game, because there's no play you can call that's going to score 28 points in one play. So you got to take it one play at a time and try to get something going. And, if you're a Michigan State fan, you might be thinking, well, our guys were disappointed they didn't make the Rose Bowl, they didn't show up ready to play. No, that's not the case. What happened was they're realizing why this Alabama team was ranked #1 in the country for the first 5 weeks of the season. They're healthy, they're motivated, and when they play like they're playing right now, they're as good as anybody out there.
And Michigan State will get the football first. That's the good news if you're a Spartan fan.
So we get to worry about the ball on the tee here to start the game.
That's exactly right. And that's Cade Foster, who I think is going to have to put a little super glue on the tip of that ball or in the middle of his tee. And that ball is in the air to start the third quarter. Now to the 5-yard line to Fowler. Fowler trying to follow his blockers. A pretty nice return. He's had a couple of those in the game out across the 30-yard line of the 31 as we take a look at our Pacific Life game summary. Mark Ingram, a 1-yard rushing touchdown after Trent Richardson was denied down close. Then Richardson not to be denied on an 8-yard score. Mark Ingram added another one. A dandy after he not only got him close, he got him to the 6. He got the other 6 for the touchdown. And then look at the block by the quarterback. The spring Julio Jones, 35 yards. There's your 4 touchdowns. And there's your 28-0 lead as we have Michigan State offensively to open things up in the third quarter at their own 32-yard line.
They really have to try to avoid the negative plays as well. I mean, they got behind the chains several times in that first half, and that's tough against this defense.
They're going to try to run, and it didn't work again on the first snap of the third quarter as we check in with Holly.
Checking in with Alabama coach Nick Saban at the half. I said, Coach, in this environment, a bowl game and a big lead at the half, how do you avoid a let-up? He looked at me and said, hey, we've been here before. He's referring to that 24-7 lead they had at the half against Auburn in their last game, a game that they lost. He doesn't feel like that will be an issue because his players just suffered such a crushing blow. And I will point out, guys, Alabama was not going to wait to take to the field. The halftime show was still going on. They came bursting out and ran across the field. They're ready. They're not waiting for anybody.
They had a great first half. They want to finish strong and have a 10-win season for the 3rd straight year. Cousins on a crossing route to Martin. Martin had a nice move to put his hand on the ground and get a few extra yards. Luther Davis finally made the stop, but he got 7.
Yeah, and at least they've got a manageable 3rd down situation here to start the third quarter. You know, when we talked to Don Treadwell, the offensive coordinator for Michigan State, he said the thing about Alabama, the back end of their defense and their secondary and pass coverage, they do more than anybody we've ever seen. They're very creative, very NFL-like in their coverages and pressure packages, but at least when you're 3rd and 3 or 4, you've got a lot more flexibility.
Let's see if they can pick up the 4. Here comes a blitz. They give Cousins time, but he overthrew Markdell with DeMarcus Milner covering.
And that's on Kirk Cousins. I mean, he didn't set his feet. I mean, he was pressured the whole first half, and this is a play where he had enough time to set his feet and make the throw, but he treated it like he was under pressure and threw off his back foot and threw high.
Sometimes when you get in that spot, right, when you feel the pressure the whole game, you think it's there and it's not. So that'll be Aaron Bates to punt. We've seen a few fake punts this year out of Michigan State. I'm not sure I'd expect one on this spot on the field, but you never know. And the kick will go down to Marquise Mays at the 21-yard line. 41-yard kick and no return. So Alabama with a 4-touchdown lead has got it right back. Well, after an intense season-long competition and more than 7 million online and text votes, the mascot of the year, good for 20 grand, Old Dominion University's mascot, Big Blue. Nice to be mascot of the year.
Yeah.
We were talking about Greg McElroy, not only the Capital One Academic All-American of the Year, he's the ESPN Academic All-American of the Year, too. This is a handoff to Ingram, and Mark Ingram broke into the second level, and he's still on his feet as he's run out of bounds finally in front of the Spartan bench after a pickup of 14.
Barrett Jones leading the way for him on that block. Again, Barrett Jones, we talked about this team being motivated. It's also the healthiest they've been in a long time. Number 75, Barrett Jones getting out. Nice seal block on the inside on Blake Treadwell. This offense in the first half was almost flawless. 264 yards, no turnovers, no sacks allowed, 6 of 7 on 3rd downs. They were near perfect.
Play fake. And a throw to Dial. And Dial with a hurdle down to the 40-yard line. Over Marcus Hyde.
You know, that's the second or third time in this game that Michigan State has brought pressure and nobody has accounted for the tight end or the motion tight end coming out of the backfield. They bring a blitz, nobody picks up Dial, and McElroy knows that and gets rid of the ball before the pressure can get to him.
They'll set it at the 41 with a first down. Alabama. And adds Ingram again. Mark Ingram spins his way down inside the 40 to about the 37. As Todd said earlier, the Flint, Michigan native wanted to have a good game against the school that his grandpa played at, his dad Mark starred at, his mom went to, Shonda, his mom, who's here today, with his grandma and a whole bunch of other relatives, shaking up a little bit on that one after the carry. But he was heavily recruited by Michigan State, and it came down to Michigan State, Iowa, and Alabama. And he chose the Tide. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. Second down and 5. McElroy going to go deep. Marquise Mays has got it. Touchdown on a perfect strike from McElroy at 36 yards to Marquise Mays.
Well, he just made Johnny Adams look like a ballerina. Turned him around, man. Pirouetted him. It's one-on-one coverage, the post route. Watch Johnny Adams. As soon as he spun, it was over. And Marquise Mays gets the separation and a beautiful throw by McElroy.
The look of a coach that's about to be down by 5 touchdowns. Shelley in for the point after. It's up and good. And right now, Alabama looks like they are definitely one of the best teams in the country. Number 16, they came in ranked, and they are ripping apart number 9, Michigan State. This is going to be a 46-yard field goal attempt to try to send it to a second overtime. Conroy, it's a fake. Bates is going to throw. Michigan State wins it in overtime. The call of the year. Wow. Those two smiles say it all. Yeah, that was voted, I think, the number 7 play of the year in all sports as far as surprises. Bates with that touchdown throw. As Todd and Holly were there to watch it against Notre Dame and the win. That was one of the miracle moments. This certainly isn't right now, as they're down 35-0 to Alabama. But shortly after that call and that win, I think a lot of you know Mark D'Antonio suffered a heart attack. And Don Treadwell, his offensive coordinator, took over, ran the team in his absence, kind of worked his way, eked his way back in there little by little. And completely healthy now, still wondering why that happened. But the high pressures of coaching football, I guess. I told him I almost had a heart attack when he made the call. That's what I was telling him the other day. And Don has since now, after this game's over, there's Don Treadwell. He'll become the head coach at Miami of Ohio. Yep. So I think a little bit of that being kind of the interim guy, it helped you know, his exposure to the rest of the country and obviously to his alma mater.
Well, and you know, he had to do interviews, he had to be seen, he had to be heard. He was the face and the voice of the program when Mark was in the hospital, and he handled things beautifully and deserved the opportunity to get a head coaching job. He'll take Mike Haywood's spot, who took the head job at Pittsburgh.
First down. I don't know what Don's got on that chart over there, but I hope he's got something. Trailing by 35. They'll continue to try to run the ball, and Baker's just going nowhere. Loss of 2 again. Edwin Baker, who came in with 1,187 rushing yards. Nothing today, though. Coming up after the Capital One Bowl today right here on ESPN. This will be a dandy. The Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, presented by Vizio. Undefeated TCU taking on the 11-1 Wisconsin Badgers. Coverage starts at 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific. Right here on ESPN.
And I'm really intrigued by that game. Of course, everybody talks about the matchup of the Wisconsin running game against the #1 ranked defense in the country in TCU. I think Andy Dalton, the quarterback at TCU, has something to prove in this game as well. Played very poorly in their bowl loss to Boise State last year.
That ball is batted down by Josh Chapman. I think a lot of people underestimate Scott Tolzien and what he's done for Wisconsin, too.
Absolutely. I mean, and obviously, when you run the ball as well as they do, it makes a quarterback job really nice, and the play-action passing game very much a part of what the Badgers do. But That should be a very interesting game. You know, obviously TCU doesn't have the physical strength to line up man for man and play with Wisconsin head to head, but they've got the speed.
Cousins got leveled as he threw. Keyshawn Martin, though, made the catch on the other end. Wow, Kirk Cousins got a lot on that ball for getting leveled by Courtney Upshaw.
Well, they have been in his backfield all game, and he knows he's got to get rid of it. That's a smart decision by Don Treadwell to move the pocket, to get Cousins out away from the same launch point, and that bought him a little extra time to get that ball in the air for Keyshawn Martin.
So on 3rd down and 12, they got 36. First down since there was 11 minutes left in the second quarter for Michigan State. At the Bama 41. Here comes the heat again. And this time he's hit as he throws by Menzie coming off the corner. And Kirk Cousins is saying, could somebody please protect my backside? Because I've been on my backside most of the game.
Again, Alabama is just so creative in how they come after a quarterback. And one of Nick Saban's great strengths. Well, what they're going to say is that nobody was in the area and Kirk Cousins had not left the pocket.
I think Kirk is saying, Greg, or Mr. Referee, I just got the number 8 crushed through to my chest while I was trying to throw it.
Yeah, but the rule is if he doesn't leave the pocket, there has to be someone in the area. Now, I would argue that number 88
was in the ballpark.
Was close by.
That's where he was trying to head with the football. But intentional grounding and loss of down. So it's back at the 48.
See, I don't think he was trying to throw that ball away. I think he got hit right as he threw it, and that's why the ball took that kind of strange path to the ground.
Here comes the end around. Keyshawn Martin. Man, Courtney Upshaw has played like a first-team All-American today, as he did against Auburn, even though it was in a losing effort.
Well, you tell a guy that's on the backside of a play your responsibility. Make sure you know what's going on. All right, here he is right here. Watch him come off the line of scrimmage. Now get his leverage and keep the guy on his outside and then go make the tackle. I mean, you just can't play it any better or more disciplined than Courtney Upshaw did on that play.
You know, they got that 36-yard pass play, and again, they got to the 41-yard line of Alabama. And how many times has all of a sudden Michigan State been 25 or 30 yards behind where they planned on starting? Cousins, here comes the heat again. Marcel Darius almost got to him, and he had to let go of that one as well.
Markdell is limping and down on the ground at the end of that play. They already lost B.J. Cunningham, their leading receiver, to a broken foot in practice. And now Markdell, their second leading receiver, is down at the end of the play.
He was just trying to make a move on Kirkpatrick to get off the line. I don't know if their feet got tangled or if he just turned it on his own, trying to get out into his pattern. Markdell, who came in with 49 catches, one behind B.J. Cunningham. Now there's where his left ankle gave out.
He stepped right on Kirkpatrick's foot. It's like you see it happens in basketball quite a bit.
Yeah.
I can tell you exactly what I'm drawing to and everything. You just got hit.
And there's B.J. Cunningham. Already he's had surgery on that broken foot. Those two guys, their statistics, both seasonal and career, almost identical. Different kinds of receivers, but each very productive. There's the boot on B.J.'s left foot. Meanwhile, Bates has got a punt. And Marquise Mays, who scored a touchdown on the last snap offensively for Alabama, is back as a punt returner. And he might have a chance at this one, too. From the 26. One man missed. Got a block. Marquise Mays to the corner. 40 and out of bounds. Nice return to the 43-yard line. 17-yard punt return by Marquise Mays. Crimson Tide faithful are loving it on New Year's Day in Orlando. Back at the Capital One Bowl in Orlando, where the SEC right now dominating the Big Ten as Alabama leads Michigan State 35-0. And these are the drives for Alabama. The only time they didn't score a touchdown, they weren't trying. They were just trying to burn some clock up to get to the locker room at halftime. Other than that, 79, 62, 80, 44, and another 79. I don't know why Cody Mandel just didn't go to Disney World today. So he hasn't had to do anything. He's warming up on the sideline like he might have to punt, but Alabama hasn't. Richardson across the middle, and he's got a first down in Spartan territory inside the 46-yard line.
You know, as you watch this Alabama team play the way that they're playing today, you can't help but think, you know, that they're going to be right there next year when this thing starts up again. Now, there's some big decisions by some of their juniors that may or may not enter the NFL draft. That's a big issue for Alabama right now, but they are loaded coming back.
Here's their senior quarterback zipping it down the middle. The receiver slipped. It was Julio Jones, and Julio's one of those guys that Todd was talking about that will have to make a decision. And Julio, had he not slipped, I think had an easy catch there. There's another guy that'll have to make the decision. He won the Heisman last year. This year, missed his first 2 games with a knee, and has really come on strong here today again.
Well, you got Hightower, who is listed as a sophomore, but he sat out 1 year with an injury. Courtney Upshaw's a junior. Marcel Darius, a junior. And those are the bulk of your leaders coming back next year if they do come back to play at Alabama.
And here's one of the 2 possibilities to play quarterback next year. A.J. McCarron, who's in the lineup and gets the handoff to Richardson. Greg McElroy, if his day is done, it was another beauty. Very efficient. He doesn't like the word efficient, but almost 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns. I think my favorite play, though, was the block on Julio Jones end around for a score in this game.
Well, the key for Greg McElroy in his career at Alabama is when he plays within himself, they're pretty good, and he's pretty good. And he may not like the word efficient, but that describes him better than anything. And when he tries to get outside of that and do too much, he's struggled, and the offense has struggled, but he certainly didn't struggle today.
Richardson stopped short of the first down by Greg Jones. Let's go back to that play if you missed it. On Julio Jones end around. This was his quarterback leading the way.
Yeah. I mean, there won't be any more post-game film sessions, but that's a keeper right there.
He'll remember that one forever. And he went down. He was so excited. He not only wanted to congratulate Julio, he wanted to look at. He's got his lineman slapping him. Everybody slapping him on the helmet. Well, good thing Cody Mandel didn't go to Disney World. He's got a kick.
Yeah, won't be able to take the shower pill after the game. He's going to sprinkle some water on it.
And he hit it a mile in the air. Might be a really good punt, too, by the way. Oh, took a little bit too high of a bounce and made the end zone. 7:33 remaining in the third quarter. Michigan State will have it back at their own 20, but they're down 35. And Mississippi State 17 up on Michigan. Dan Mullen with a new contract extension this year. He's done a great job in Starkville. Baker, line of scrimmage and nothing more. Damian Square made the stop. Damian back up nose tackle. Some of the second line players are in right now for Nick Saban, and I got to think he's looking over that sideline to his old friend and guy that was an assistant coach under him for 5 years, thinking this is bad enough.
Well, they have great admiration, respect for each other, and you know, Nick's been in the business long enough that they've won this game. They've dominated the game, and they've given absolutely no breathing room at all to this Michigan State offense. It's not only take it easy a little bit, but also let some of these other guys play in the football game to get ready for next year.
Yeah, those are the guys you were talking about for next year. Cousins is leveled from behind by Alex Watkins, the backup outside linebacker. That spot where Courtney Upshaw and Watkins played has been the sorest spot in Kirk Cousins' back all afternoon. And Kirk's hurt this time.
Well, Kirk's hurt, and also the offensive lineman blocking on the other side is down. I mean, this has just been, and again, there's no run threat whatsoever. So the guys that are on the field for Alabama right now, they know they can really pin their ears back and go after the quarterback. But
that's J. Michael Dean.
They have found creases. It's not necessarily been all-out blitzes, but they've beaten them on the outside. The speed rush on the edge against the tackles here from Michigan State. In this case, DJ Young on the left side. They've just been overpowered.
And the guys that aren't out there, like Marcel Darius, enjoying watching some of his teammates who don't play as much shine on the field. And Kirk Cousins is going to have to come off. He has been battered, sacked 4 times, hurried a number more, and hit after he's thrown a few times. Not the kind of day that the junior from Holland, Michigan was looking for, a 2-time captain. And so now Andrew Maxwell, a redshirt freshman, will come in and take over. Maybe for the rest of the day. We'll have to wait and see.
And for the 7th time in the game for Michigan State, it's 3rd down and 9 or longer. And that's just very hard against a Nick Saban and Kirby Smart defense that Alabama plays.
Andrew Maxwell is 9 of 19 on the season. Now he's, well, nickel had a hand on it. I was going to say he was 10 out of 20, but C.J. Mosley had different ideas, and now Keith Nichols hurt. And not only that, but Maxwell got planted when he let go of the ball by Dante Hightower. And Keith Nichols, a tough cookie. Former quarterback, turned wide receiver at this time a year ago for the bowl game, as they check on Kirk Cousins on the sideline. And now the guy that battled him for the starting quarterback job a year ago turned wide receiver, being helped off. Well, he's coming off on his own, actually. So we check in with Holly.
The injuries are piling up for Michigan State. It looks like wide receiver Mark Dell is done for the day. He's got a left knee injury. They've iced it up with a big bag. And right now, Kirk Cousins, they've actually got a stethoscope out. They're trying to listen to his ribs. Even with all this protection and padding that he's got on, he is still struggling to breathe a little bit right now. He did just say to the trainers, though, I want to go back in if I can, but they're trying to listen to him breathe right now and see if he's okay.
Well, we already saw one starting quarterback yesterday go down with broken ribs. Kyle Parker from Clemson is Bates with a punt. Marquise Mays fields at the 38. Little juke step one way, comes back the other, and then slips and went down. But still, Alabama's got it at the 42-yard line with a big-time lead at the Capital One Bowl in Orlando.
You're watching ESPN, new home of the Bowl Championship Series.
And speaking of the BCS tonight on ESPN, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl from Glendale, number 7 Oklahoma, takes on the Big East champion Huskies of UConn, making their first BCS appearance. The game also available on ESPN Radio, online at ESPN3.com, ESPN3D, and on your phone.
The football team will try to maybe pick up. The women's basketball team had their streak in.
Yep.
The Husky football team trying to carry the load tonight.
6:09 remaining third quarter as McCarron comes up throwing out to Preston Dial again. Dial's had a good game. He's got about 5 more yards, 6 actually on the reception. Well, you talk about the BCS, and when you look at the SEC, as we're seeing Alabama dominate the Big Ten, they have pretty much dominated the BCS games as well. The non-qualifiers next in line at 67%, as Utah and Boise State.
TCU get another chance right after this in the Rose Bowl against Wisconsin.
Big Ten will have another chance at the SEC, where we're heading after we leave here. We'll head to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl coming up on January 4th. I would say what day that was, like Tuesday. I get all mixed up. Tuesday night, we'll be there in New Orleans to bring you Ohio State and Arkansas.
Well, what you're seeing right now from Alabama, you've got your first team offensive line still in. I would guess this might be their last possession. You've got a new quarterback, you've got new backs and receivers, but they're not going to call up the dogs. They're going to still play.
Well, these guys want to play
with
too.
Backups. That's right.
Smelly in at tight end. McCarron going out in the flat to the 40-yard line. It is to Brad Smelly, knocked out of bounds as we check in with Holly.
Well, Alabama running back Mark Ingram told us before this game that he was finally healthy this season. But, guys, he has gotten a high ankle sprain. It looks like he came out of the game. They've put a big ice pack on just above his ankle joint where they were examining him. They said he could return to the game, but it looks like with this score they won't need him to. And, you know, his knee has been an issue all season, the swelling and trying to maintain that. But, guys, he's got to have to make a decision now, get ready for the draft and get healthy.
Well, that's if he goes to the NFL. You have to get ready for the draft. Holly, don't push him out the door. We want him back. Here's a run and a first down run by Demetrius Good.
Well, we mentioned Alabama next year. I mean, the guys they're losing on this offense, the left tackle, James Carpenter, they've got to replace there. Preston Dial has had a nice ball game. And then Greg McElroy is the only other true senior that they're losing. So then the most visible and obvious question, who will be the quarterback next year for Alabama? It's going to be a battle between the guy that's playing right now, A.J. McCarron.
They really like Philip Sims, too.
And Philip Sims is a true freshman out of Chesapeake, Virginia, who is maybe more of a run threat, dual threat kind of quarterback than McCarron. But both guys can really throw the football.
First down at the 35. McCarron. He's going to tuck it and take off down the middle. Picked up 4. Greg Jones made the stop. Talking about the NFL, Greg Jones will go on now, the senior captain who's led the team in tackles the last 2 years. Two-time All-American at middle linebacker. He's been quite a player. Came in with 457 career tackles. We spent quite a bit of time with him this year, and a heck of a kid and a really good player.
Well, and the thing that makes him what he is here they are. They're losing 35-0. He's out there still flying around, still playing on special teams, still trying to play his best ball.
Second down at 6. A little quick opening draw to Good. And he got it down close to the first down, about a yard shy. Denzel Drone made the stop.
And you know what? And this will show up for NFL scouts that are watching Greg Jones as much as anything else. His team is getting whipped, and here he is late in the game, and he's still in there sizing them up. Good technique, good form, good tackle.
And guys, not only that, but Greg Jones has played much of the season injured. Right before the season started, he had a torn ligament in the ring finger of his left hand. He can't even bend it. He hasn't been able to really grasp, but he didn't want to have surgery and sit out this season. He wanted to be on the field with his teammates, and that says something for this young man that he's been playing all year hurt, hasn't said a thing to anybody.
Yeah, well said. McCarron dropped the ball on the snap on a 3rd and 1. So it's going to be 4th down at about a yard. And Gordon and Jones have played together so long. Eric Gordon, Greg Jones are roommates on the road. They're inseparable. They remind me of Marcus Freeman and James Laurinaitis when they played together at Ohio State for so many games. Look at the numbers by these two guys, and they both played extremely hard and extremely well over their career. They're kidding with Holly was talking about the tendon in Greg's hand, and it's in his left ring finger, or basically from his ring finger down to the base of his palm. And I said, you're going to have to get that Big Ten championship ring fitted for your right hand. He said, nah, that's going to Mom anyway. Beverly gets the ring, I guess.
It'll be around a chain for a necklace.
Yeah,
probably.
Exactly. 4th down and a couple. And a first down by Good, and he runs over a couple of guys. And that's the 3rd string tailback behind Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson.
And Eric Gordon just barely missed him. We just talked about him. He was in the backfield. He had a shot to get the play behind the line of scrimmage and just not able to secure the tackle. Watch 43 flash right in there. And Good is just able to kind of elude him enough to get the first down.
We talked about Gordon earlier, but 49 straight starts for the outside linebacker out of Traverse City, Michigan. That is an ongoing school record, and that'll be a hard one to break probably if you're an upcoming Spartan. Inside handoff. Good is playing good or well. And Gordon made the stop. We're down to minute 35 in the quarter, and hopefully Eric Gordon's not hurt. He made the stop right there. Might have gotten hit by his own man a little bit at the end of the play. Some friendly fire, and Eric's still down. They got the helmet off. He might have gotten it right in the nose. He's a second generation, or third, I guess you might be able to call it. His grandpa played at Michigan State for Biggie Munn back in the day, and he is a hard-nosed football player, and I think that's where he got it, was right in the nose. Whether you got the helmet on or not, the mouthpiece always goes in the same spot.
We had a strange play in our game the other night. Jake Locker was hit early in the game. It looked like a helmet-to-helmet hit. Looked like he was out with a concussion, and what ended up happening was his helmet got knocked down, and it forced his eyes shut, and he couldn't open his eyes, and it kind of freaked him out. Everybody thought he was out, and he really just couldn't open his eyes, and was able to come back in the game the next possession. I'd never heard that before.
Doc, it's all dark. Pull your helmet up to be able to see.
It hurts when I do this. Well, don't do that.
Second down. And again for a touchdown to Eddie Lacy. Alabama with another score. And that's a four-string tailback.
Fourth-string tailback, first-team offensive line, and a very tired Michigan State defense. They've been on the field on a hot afternoon way too much.
I don't think anybody, at least Todd and Holland, I don't think, expected 42-0 at any point in this game with 1:09 remaining. Shelley, the extra point, up and good. So another touchdown drive. There's been only one punt today by Alabama. The rest of the time, just take it down the field. Give it to, in this case, your four-string tailback. And he goes 12 yards for the touchdown.
Yeah, and a nice block by the center, William Vlahos, on that middle linebacker, Greg Jones. Open things up on the inside.
And look at this, Vlahos saying to Greg Jones, hey man, I know you're playing your pants off right now, and we don't even mean to be running it up, but these guys want to play too. And I think that's the biggest thing when fans ask us, why'd they run up the score? Well, these guys practice just as hard as the scout team does, and the first team and the second team and the third team. You can't tell them, hey, slow down, take a knee.
And Michigan State doesn't want them to slow down either. I mean, that Michigan State defense, the only wish they had is that their offense stayed on the field a little bit longer in this game, and they were a little bit more rested. But it's, that's the way it goes. It's the last football game they'll play for a long time until spring football starts. So, yeah, you play till the very end of the football game.
It's going to be a sweet ending for Alabama, obviously. The second most points in bowl history. And it's still got 15 minutes more than that to go. Larry Caper from the 3. And Caper out to about the 34-yard line. 62 seconds left in the third quarter. 42-0. On a beautiful day in Orlando. Be nice to be sitting out in the crowd right now with shorts and flip-flops on as you look down at the sun-drenched crowd, courtesy of DirecTV. Our coverage, aerial coverage, brought to you by DirecTV. Don't just watch TV, DirecTV. You can see the blue skies in Orlando, Florida. Holly.
Guys, Kirk Cousins said he's fine on the sideline. He wants to come back in. I saw him take something orally, some kind of medication, but they're not going to put him back in right now. He's taking a beating. So at this time, Maxwell's going to continue in this game.
And he is the redshirt freshman, Maxwell. Get some playing time here off play action. Throws down the middle and got it to Gant, his tight end. I don't know how he tucked that one in there. And a flag at the end of the play.
Yeah, C.J. Mosley was in perfect position, the linebacker, on coverage, but he didn't know where the ball was, and it zipped right past him into the hands of Gant. It was a beautiful throw by Maxwell.
Here's a call, the end of the play.
There is no foul on the play.
Okay, there is no call then. We picked the flag up, and it's first down at the 33-yard line. Here's the ball. Here's the pass down the middle. It's a beauty.
Yeah, beautiful throw by Maxwell right past the linebacker, C.J. Mosley. And how about this? 34 yards on that play. It was 27 plays that got him 34 yards prior to that.
So they get one big chunk from their backup quarterback to Charlie Gant, their senior tight end. And that might be one of the better runs of the day, believe it or not, by Edwin Baker, who had some sensational games this year. He had 4 touchdowns against Minnesota. He was over 100 yards 5 times, but today it has been one of those kind of days. Minus 41 rushing for Michigan State.
When you talk about Michigan State and their future, Edwin Baker, just a sophomore. Le'Veon Bell, the other back that rotates with him, a freshman. Larry Caper, a sophomore. Kirk Cousins, a junior. So a lot of good football players coming back to East Lansing next year as well.
End of the quarter. We played 3 at the Capital One. And it's Alabama rolling here in the sunshine of Orlando. Back at the Capital One Bowl as we take a look And our Pacific Live game summary. There's the stars of the Alabama offense. Another great day by Greg McElroy, including a block that sprung Julio Jones. You don't see it on there, but a 35-yard end around for a touchdown. He caught all 3 of those passes on one drive that led to a touchdown, and Mark Ingram scored twice. So there's 2 of those guys together on the sideline, Julio Jones and Mark Ingram. 42-0 as we start the 4th quarter. Andrew Maxwell with a pump fake and the throw to Keyshawn Martin that's ricocheted off DeMarcus Miller.
You know, we talked about the juniors, and 2 of them we just saw in Ingram and Julio Jones that have to make decisions about their NFL future. One of the luxuries they have with Nick Saban is because of his NFL background, he can call up 10, 12, 13 guys in the NFL and get a real accurate read on where these guys project. You know, there's a lot of interest, a lot of, worry a little bit about the labor situation in the NFL, what that's going to mean to the draft, and guys coming out, should they come out, should they not. But the information that they'll get from their head coach, Nick Saban, will be pretty right on from the NFL perspective.
No doubt about that. 3rd down and 5 for Maxwell and the Spartan offense. And a strike to nickel, and he's got a 1st down. And Keith, who had been shaken up earlier, back out there, and they moved the sticks. You know, Nick was telling us yesterday, he said he laid it out for his guys. He said, look, last year there was projected 90 guys who were going to go in the 1st round. Well, there's only 32 picks, so 90 guys aren't going to go. 23 of the 90 did. The other guys trickle down, so sometimes you have to be a little bit careful about how rated you have in your mind and how everybody else has you rated, I guess.
And like Nick would say, just like any coach would say, if you're going to be a high 1st-round pick,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to go.
Michigan State. The deepest penetration has been the 3-yard line. Here they are in the red zone. Little quick throw. And Charlie Gant didn't hold it. Yeah. It wasn't a great throw, but
well, Maxwell probably should have run that one.
Yeah.
I mean, he was out there on the edge. He tried to throw it back. Kind of a tough throw to Charlie Gant, and he might have been able to run for 6 or 7 yards. But I like what I've seen out of Maxwell so far. Mark D'Antonio told us, you know, he's played well when we put him in. But that's not an easy throw. If he stays on the edge and runs, he might even get the 1st down.
Right. Well, they next year would like to sprinkle him in a little more behind Kirk Cousins, much like they did with Kirk Cousins when Brian Hoyer was there. So that's the plan for next season. Kirk Cousins will be a 3-time captain. I'm sure he'll be a captain next year. He's also already a 2-time captain, but this is his backup, and he's got this one swatted in the air by C.J. Mosley.
Well, Mosley got his hand on the ball, but I'll tell you what, I liked what I saw out of Le'Veon Bell that time, number 24. A lot of times when a kid's a true freshman out of high school, he doesn't know how to pass block. He's used to just carrying the ball. Watch him stick his nose in here and pick up the blitz. That's Dante Hightower. That's a big man coming up right at him, and he did not shy away at all. But Mosley, the 2nd linebacker in, got his hands on the football.
Dante Hightower, another guy that could conceivably go to the NFL. We asked him about that yesterday, and he said, I'll just echo what Mark said after Mark Ingram said he's going to sit down with the coaches and his family when the season's over and when this game's over sometime in the near future and talk about it. Low snap. Maxwell's in trouble. Down he goes way back at the 35-yard line. And again, Marcel Darius and company, just too much for the offensive front of Michigan State.
And what a recurring theme in this game. Michigan State gets something going, they get some momentum, and then a big negative play. I mean, it just has happened over and over in this football game.
There's another guy that will be able to play at the next level when he so chooses. That's the 5th sack, and that is a season high allowed by Michigan State.
I think this Tide defense wanted to go for a shutout. I mean, you got Hightower, Darius, all those guys still in the game rushing the quarterback. Here's Darius again.
Oh, boy. Down goes Maxwell, and he looks like he's hurt, and now the ball is out. And the play I thought had been whistled dead. Maybe it hadn't. Yeah, it's at the 40-yard line is where the linesman's got his foot down. And the Tide defense. And we might be down to our next quarterback. Maxwell being helped off.
Now that might have been Marcel Darius' last play of the game, and it was a beauty. I can't imagine he'll still be in, but oh my, that is a quarterback's nightmare. Number 57, he beats 2 linemen on his way to the quarterback.
Back of the Capital One Bowl in Orlando. It's been dominated by the Crimson Tide of Alabama with 13:20 to play. Rose Bowl presented by Vizio's coming up next. There's Brett Bielema in his first Rose Bowl appearance as head coach. See if he can do as well as his predecessor, Barry Alvarez. Barry won all of the Rose Bowls he played in as the head coach at Wisconsin.
I can't picture Barry walking into the stadium with the headphones on.
No, me neither.
Wrapped around
and I know he's listening to reggae. If I know Bielema, he's listening to reggae, which Barry wouldn't be doing that either, probably. And when you talk about it, though, Wisconsin's Rose Bowl history pre-Barry Alvarez, they lost them all, and then they put together the outstanding offensive line and guys like Brent Moss and Ron Dane and a lot more, and that's the kind of team they have now. 3 tailbacks that could conceivably all end up with 1,000 yards on the season. Their offensive line averages about 328 pounds, something like that, and that's not cheese, it's muscle. And they'll take out undefeated TCU when we're done here. Throw complete out to Earl Alexander.
Pass complete to Earl Alexander.
Alabama, of course, as we flash back, was in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena last year against Mack Brown's Longhorns of Texas. And Trent Richardson keeping it high and tight and then turning the smoke on down the field. Ingram, short yardage score. We talked about Marcel Darius. He had an interception return for a touchdown, and the trophy held aloft 37-21 in a 14-0 season. This year it looks like it's going to end up 10-3, but boy, the 10th win is as impressive as any they've had all year.
Well, and you know, you think back to that game last year. Colt McCoy, the heart and soul of that Texas team, got hurt in the first possession, and that game really changed from that moment on. It was a valiant comeback, but how important are guys like that to a football team? Look at Texas this year without Colt McCoy. Didn't even make it into a bowl game.
Well, they had to force Garrett Gilbert into duty last year. They actually settled in the second half, made some nice plays. This year, the first time Mack Brown been home for the holidays since forever. Cody Mandel to punt. And this one's going to take a great bounce, but it bounces right to Keyshawn Martin. Martin going far side, trying to get to the corner. He got out to the 28-yard line. Demetrius Good made the tackle. 11-17 remaining in the quarter. Julio Jones, one of the stars of the game. There have been a lot of them. If you're a Tide fan, you can look at that whole sideline and see a whole bunch of stars. Hope that guy's got direct TV out on that boat because he's missing the game. Well, maybe he came to the first half and decided to go boating at halftime because it is 42-0. And at quarterback is Keith Nickel, the wide receiver. And this is Larry Caper trying to come wide and got belted after about a 1-yard gain.
Well, you know, Michigan State been hurt by the injuries today. Had to have guys fill in. We've got a couple of our guys that are down a little bit. Rembert Young, one of our top guys, tape guys, and guy who works on my Taste of the Town as well as a lot of the other things, is in the hospital right now. Getting some work done for his heart.
Remember, we hope our heart's with you. We'll tell you that much.
Absolutely. Dave Gallatin, another guy who's working this game but won't be able to join us at the Sugar Bowl, has an eye injury.
Sven, you look good in that pirate patch, by the way, but we hope you get that straightened out. Charlie Gantz. We shouldn't talk about injuries because the Spartans are going down just about every play right now. There's Maxwell on the sideline. He was belted by Marcel Darius, and his head really hit the turf. Kirk Cousins is walking around with his chin strap on as if to say, I'll go do it.
He wants back in the game.
Yeah, the winner, and we know it's going to be Alabama in 10.5 minutes to get the Capital One Bowl championship trophy. Good looking piece of hardware that they can take back to Tuscaloosa and put in that beautiful building that's got so much of it already. 3rd down and 8. Keith Nickel hasn't been in this position in a long time, having to throw a football. And he threw it a little bit high and into some coverage. Incomplete as we check in with Reese Davis.
All right, Brad, we'll get you up to date on some of the other games going on in the family of networks. Outback Bowl Penn State and Florida tied at 17. Matt McGloin gets it to the corner. Florida's answered with a field goal. They're about to go to the fourth quarter on ABC. Nittany Lions up 24-20. A little bit of good news for Michigan State. At least the Wolverines are getting clobbered on ESPN2 by Mississippi State.
Mississippi State 38-14. So the Scranton Scrapper with a touchdown for your Knits there. And here comes the punt from Bates. And it's a beauty. Whoa, did he get a hold of this one? Marquise Mesa, I didn't think I was going to have to backpedal 20 yards, 54-yard kick. 10-17 remaining in the Capital One Bowl in Orlando. Coming up tonight on ESPN, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, Tostitos Fiesta Bowl from Glendale, Arizona. Number 7 Oklahoma taking on the Big East champion Huskies of UConn. The game also available on ESPN Radio, ESPN3.com, ESPN 3D, and on your phone. And there's Gary Patterson, second straight BCS Bowl for him. Last year it was out in Glendale, Arizona against Boise State. Now it's against the 11-1 Badgers of Wisconsin from the Big Ten. Should be a heck of a game. That follows us right here on ESPN. With Todd Blackledge and Holly Rowe, Brad Nessler with you. Happy New Year from Orlando. Not a happy time for Michigan State, but for Alabama and their fans, quite a special way to round out the season. This will be 10 straight wins for the third straight year. And you have to go back to 77-80 under Bear Bryant the last time they put together double-digit wins in this long a streak. And there's one of Bear's hats up there in the middle of the crowd. A lot of those around, obviously.
Well, Nick Saban has certainly restored the glory to Alabama.
Well, I guess.
I mean, they are going to be good for a long time. I mean, you look at them on the field in warm-ups, they have players at every position. They are a good-looking football team.
McCarron. Tough throw out to Good, and Good down the sideline. That was a heck of a throw just to get it out there. It looked like the defensive back was going to make a play on it, but it's a pickup of 16. Holly.
Well, guys, going back to the days when Nick Saban was the head coach at Michigan State, they weren't as successful in bowl games as he would have liked to be. So he decided to change the way they prepare for bowl games. Instead of sprinkling in a few practices here, trying to work around school schedules, he decided to make it a one-game season and start from scratch. They did 4 to 5 days as a mini camp, get the work for the younger guys, try to get some development, some fundamentals, and then the next is all game prep. You have to say his bowl record, it might be working, that change he made.
I think so. And this might be working for Eddie Lacy. Racing to the end zone. Touchdown. His second touchdown of the second half. And this one's 62 yards.
Well, you see him, too. He looked around 2 or 3 times. I don't think he could believe he was so wide open running down the middle of the field. He says, wait a minute. It's not supposed to be this easy.
And his teammates, the starters, meet him on the sideline with smiles and hugs as he just went for a career-long romp of 62 yards. Didn't take long on that drive. 1 minute and 18 seconds and 3 plays. Jeremy Shelley's been a busy extra point kicker today. And with just under 9 minutes remaining, the misery for Michigan State continues.
Well, and again, this is not running up the score. This is a running play, but there was nobody at home in the back end of the defense. A couple broken arm tackles, and you can't tell the guy to fall down and not run. All he did was run straight ahead. And it was an easy touch. Look, I'm looking around, and Nick Saban on the sidelines like, oh, we don't need to score anymore, but what do you want him to do?
What are you going to do?
You don't want to tell the kid to fall down. I mean, I know he doesn't want to run up the score on his colleague.
I just hope this doesn't look like this to people that haven't watched the game. We've made it apparent that we know what's going on. And, you know, if you just maybe open up the paper tomorrow or you see the score someplace and you go, wow, Alabama did that, huh? Yeah. Did they need to? Well, they're playing 3rd and 4th string guys right now.
And you can't take a knee with 9 minutes left in the game. You got
that doesn't do you any good. So 49-0. You know, you talk about the job that Nick has done and that when it's in his hands, it'll be that way for a long time. Just think back. 7 wins in 07, 12 wins in 2008, a national championship in 14-0 last year, and now 10-3. That ain't bad.
Not bad at all. again, the foundation is laid. I mean, they're going to be good for a long time. The recruiting base is set. The foundation of the program and what the program is built on is set. It is as solid as there is in college football right now.
Jeremy Shelley's going to kick this one off, and it'll go to the 10-yard line to Fowler. Danny Fowler trying to find a seam. All he finds is a bulldog tackle by Jarrell Harris, who lifted him up and planted him down. Well, coming up Monday, January 10th, it's for all the marbles, or in this case, all the Tostitos. BCS National Championship game on ESPN. Heisman Trophy winning Cam Newton and #1 Auburn against #2 Oregon. Coverage starts 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific. What a dandy that will be.
It really will be. You know, and when I think of Auburn, it's interesting. They're not as good of a defensive football team as Alabama. They're not. They've got holes in their defense, but Cam Newton has been the most dominant player in college football from start to finish. And, you know, so you still have to find a way to deal with him.
Well, no matter what happens in that game, the Auburn fans will have bragging rights against their in-state rivals from Alabama because of that win. But will Auburn be able to add to what the SEC has done in BCS championship games? That's what we're going to find out, because the record's pretty darn good. Tennessee, LSU twice, Florida twice, and Alabama last year. So 2nd down at 7. Michigan State. And Le'Veon Bell, who hasn't played much today, in on the carry, got a decent gain. And of course, Le'Veon's just a true freshman, and as Todd said earlier, on the blitz pickup, he's looked pretty good. Michigan State's got a lot of guys coming back. Alabama's got a lot of guys coming back. Auburn and Oregon, same story. They're not going to be bad either, but we assume that Cam Newton will be at the next level next year. But we've done both teams. What do you think?
Well, I think Auburn has a little bit of an edge because of Newton, because he is just so hard to deal with as a runner and as a thrower, and I think they're a little more of a physical team. But I like Oregon. I was impressed with them when we saw them the last 2 weeks of the season. I think their quarterback, Darren Thomas, has to really play well, because Auburn will give up some openings in the passing game. And when Darren Thomas is on to go with that run and the speed of their backs, I think they can play with them.
How about the zone blocking of Oregon? They don't have the biggest offensive linemen, but they're probably in better shape than any other offensive line in the country.
Well, they're in great shape, and they better know where number 90 is.
Exactly.
Because Nick Fairley is a beast on the defensive front for Auburn. They're not a great overall defense, but he is a great player.
And now Nickel in the shotgun with a throw complete out to midfield. Benny Fowler as we check in with Reese Davis. Reese?
Brad, Mississippi State and Michigan. Ladarius Perkins is going to get a little dump-off pass. He's going to run for a long time. But what I want you to watch is the block from Brandon Evans, who knocks the opposite of Evans out of his Michigan counterpart right there. Perkins was on his way. Picked up 80+ before he got tripped up, ruled down. Mississippi State is hammering Michigan on ESPN2, 45-14.
Wow. Nice hit.
Wow.
Right in the ear hole.
I know you mentioned Dan Mullen earlier. I mean, you can't say enough about the job that he's done.
Boy, no kidding.
You know, there was some question when Urban Meyer stepped down, would he be the guy that would go to Florida?
Yeah.
That didn't happen. He got the extension at Mississippi State. They're a good football team. I mean, and, you know, he's just going to continue to build on that in Starkville.
It's 3rd down. For Nickel. Quick throw, and it's incomplete.
Of course, so much talk about Cam Newton this year, and it looked as though Cam Newton might have been playing for Mississippi State all along, you know, early on in that whole recruiting process as he was coming out of Lynn Junior College. And hard to imagine what Mississippi State would look like with Cam Newton playing quarterback.
Wow. Yeah, hard to imagine how a lot of teams would look if they had that guy in the backfield running the show. Last year's Heisman Trophy winner in this game, Mark Ingram, scored a couple of touchdowns here today. So if it should be his last game, it'll be one that he can remember and smile about, which is what he told us he was hoping for. And here's Benny Fowler breaking the shutout. 49 yards for the touchdown. Finally on the scoreboard, Michigan State.
Well, a lot of backups in the game for sure for Alabama. The cornerback went for an interception. He missed the ball and the tackle. And Benny Fowler with some pretty good running down the field and a nice block downfield also by the other wide receiver, Donald Spencer.
And the extra point by Dan Conroy is good. So Kyle Pennington didn't make the tackle. Benny Fowler, number 13, who's done a good job on kickoff returns, goes down the sideline for the score. The Big Redhead warming up. Andy Dalton, the leader of the Horned Frogs at TCU and Mountain West Conference Offensive Player of the Year, warming up to get ready for Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl game presented by Vizio.
Yeah, I think he's the key to the game for TCU. You know, last year in the BCS game, the Fiesta Bowl against Boise State, he did not play well and had a great senior season, and I think he'll be poised to play well today against the Badgers.
Kickoff. Alabama was expecting maybe an onside or a short kick, and they got one that goes to the end zone. So the Tide will have it back. 5:45, and the guy walking the sideline, not only an academic All-American, he's our Capital One Player of the Game. Not only great numbers again today with 220 yards rather, and a touchdown, but my favorite play was the block on the end around of Julio Jones. So he ends up his Alabama career 24-3. Watch this one. Kapow right there. And Julio says, "Thank you, sir. I'll take it the rest of the way."
And I'm not sure Greg McElroy even has a grass stain on his uniform anywhere. I'm not sure he hit the ground one time today.
Yep.
Great protection, very efficient in the passing game, good decision making, and a well-deserved honor at the end of the game.
And it could have gone to several guys. In fact, we had votes in for Julio Jones. We had several for Courtney Upshaw.
Yeah.
We had some for Marcel Darius. But number 12 gets the nod, and I'm sure his dad, Greg Sr., and his mom, Jamie, who we've had some time to spend time with after road games for Alabama, where you see him. He was brought up beautifully. Not only a very smart guy, but a competitor. And it shows like that. A lot of times this year on scrambles, they wanted him to get down, and he wanted to go head on, just like he did on that block with linebackers. And that's not a wise thing to do as a quarterback in the long run, but today he can be happy, and congratulations to Greg, and we wish him the best, whether it be somewhere in football or certainly, as smart as he is, it'll be something in this country that he'll make everything a little bit better, hopefully. Demetrius Good, loss on the play that time. A reminder for you, you can log on to ESPN3.com immediately following our coverage. You can watch the post-game coverage, including the trophy ceremony, from right here at the Capital One Bowl. That's coming up on ESPN3.com. Be another bowl win for Nick Saban, his 129th career win, another 10-win season. They came in with an NCAA record, 58 bowl appearances, and they'll have another victory under their belt here in a second. Holly.
Well, guys, earlier you were talking about those stylish hats that were made so popular by Bear Bryant, that fedora style of houndstooth plaid. Well, I don't know of any other school that is so known for their color scheme. Houndstooth is everywhere here in the stadium, guys. And believe it or not, it started back in 1964 when Bear Bryant was given a hat by the Jets owner. The Jets owner was trying to woo Joe Namath and wanted him to be his player, so he gave him that hat. Sonny Werblin gave it to Bear, and the rest is history. You see the houndstooth everywhere. I even saw a houndstooth diaper bag this year, guys. Jeff Purinton, the SID, was sporting that, so it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Holly, you look good in one of those hats. Here's McCarron, completes it to Brad Smelly, and Smelly goes out for a first down as we're under 5 minutes. Michigan State will finish their year 11-2. Their lone blemish was a loss to Iowa. Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl following us, their lone loss to Michigan State. Wisconsin beat Ohio State. Ohio State will see against Arkansas with their one loss in co-championship of the Big Ten in the Sugar Bowl on Tuesday night. Three pretty darn good teams in the Big Ten. And it came down to the BCS ranking, why Wisconsin is in the Rose Bowl and not Ohio State or Michigan, because it was a three-way tie. And Demetrius Good on the carry. Gardner on the stop. Sparty's schedule for next year. Those 4 road games aren't gimmies, I'll tell you that much.
Now, that's the key game right there at Ohio State, because right now those 5 players for Ohio State that are suspended for the first 5 games of next year, that would be their first game back.
And of course, we'll talk about that on Tuesday night, but Ohio State appealing the length of those suspensions. And it would be tough to beat Michigan State without the 5 guys we're talking about.
Yeah, and I made a mistake. It's not their first game back. That would be the last game of their suspension if it holds up as a 5-game suspension.
Eddie Lacy, who's had a great second half in relief of both Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson on the carry. Alabama will be a force next year in the SEC without a doubt. Be interesting to see if Auburn can be as good as they've been this year. It's pretty hard to be that good every year, as Alabama fans know, because 14-0 like they were a year ago for the Tide doesn't come around every season.
3rd and 7.
Down to the final 3 minutes and a 3rd down for Alabama. Low snap, but he got the handoff to Lacy, and he might be off to the races again. He got hit pretty good in the secondary by Jarris Jones, or he might have scored again.
You know, I talked to Nick Saban on the phone last night, and he told me something very interesting. He was talking about his team last year and what it was kind of missing this year from a leadership standpoint. Only 8 seniors on the team this year. And he said, you know, as a coach, you can influence and affect your team and everything that happens Monday through Friday. He said, but when Saturday comes and the game's happening and there's adversity in the game, you got to have some guys, some alpha dogs out there on the field that are going to take things under control. And they had that last year. They maybe didn't have it quite as strong this year. See, that's what Cam Newton is for the Auburn team. And that's why Auburn is where they are. And I wonder, as I think of that championship game, who does Oregon have? They've got great players, but do they have guys like that, that when adversity hits them in that game on the 10th, who will rise up for that team and take the thing under control? Auburn definitely has that in Cameron Newton. And when you have that on a football team, it makes it pretty tough to beat.
We saw Oregon respond in the game against Arizona that we did in the second half when they were down. And the closest anybody's been has been Cal, and that was relatively close game, but everybody else, they put up 48 points a game on you. So it'll be a great clash today, though. You might have seen that statistic while we were talking. 257 yards on the ground for Alabama, minus 48 for Michigan State. And when you get up around 150 yards under a Nick Saban coach team, Alabama almost never loses, and they were way above that today, over 100 farther, in fact, using all their tailbacks. And, you know, a lot of people forget, we talked about it at the beginning of the year so much. They lost 9 starters from last year's defense. And Mark Barron didn't play today, and he's their captain in the secondary. So let's say that's 10 guys. Well, I'd say this defense played pretty good.
They played very well. They played very well, and it happened up front. I mean, the defensive front, the front 7 dictated the game from the very beginning, from the opening part of the game, and controlled the line of scrimmage.
And we're down to the final couple plays. Congratulations to the Crimson Tide of Alabama, your Capital One Bowl champions, to cap the 2010 season and open up 2011. And a 10-win year, 10-3. It looked like he said, sorry about that, buddy. They're friends. Appears now, but at one point it was Mark D'Antonio as Nick's assistant. And there's your Capital One Bowl player of the game, Greg McElroy. 32nd bowl win for the Tide in their 58 appearances. They win it 49-7.
I think one thing that Nick Saban said about the team, and I think that they learned this year, is that they're only a really good team when they play at their best. And they played at their best tonight. And I think we saw that when they do that, Alabama's as good as any football team in America.
When they lost their first game this year, he said it's a team that thinks we're entitled to win, that we can just show up and win a ball game. Today they showed up and they blasted Michigan State in the Capital One Bowl 49-7. Stay tuned. Coming up next on ESPN, the Rose Bowl game presented by Vizio. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. Post-game trophy coverage on ESPN3.com following us. For Todd Blackledge, Holly Rowe, I'm Brad Nessler saying so long and Happy New Year from Orlando, Florida.